This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Hope you had a happy Halloween and welcome to November. Playoff football coming up this weekend and next in the Canadian Football League and, of course, the Grey Cup. Not too far away as well and well into the NHL season. No Jets on the ice tonight, but they are on the ice right now out in Vegas, getting ready to try to be the first team to beat the Stanley Cup champs in regulation. It's the Vegas Golden Knights 9-0-1 on the season, getting ready for tomorrow's tilt. We're going to have a lot of hockey talk today. Starting it off with Derek VanDiest from NHL.com. Had a great chance to catch up and meet Derek and hang out a little bit a couple weeks ago when I was in Edmonton. And Derek is covering the Jets, Flames, Oilers, and Canucks, the Western Canadian teams for NHL.com. So we figured on, with a couple days between games, this would be a perfect time to get Derek's take on all four Western Canadian teams. A great start for the Canucks, a pretty good start for the Winnipeg Jets, ugly starts for the two Alberta teams. So we'll start off there coming up in about 20 minutes or so, and then we're going to give you a Jets fix in a big way. JP Vigier, one of our favorites, the former player, is going to jump on. We'll get into some X's and O's about what this Winnipeg power play needs to do to turn it around, and also get JP's thoughts on the start of the season for the Winnipeg Jets, how the team looks different, as well as performances from some of the players on the club that we've been talking about quite a bit. And then Scott Billeck a little bit later on with much more on the Jets and the Winnipeg sports scene coming over from the Winnipeg Sun. There's a bunch of hockey news, which we'll get to right off the bat to kick off the program. And hey, just right off the top, and we'll mention this in a few minutes, but I want to give a big shout out to Raymond, Chris, Derek and Derek, Leighton, Stephen, Dave, One Bird, the crew that joined us for Movember. Grow those stashes, gentlemen, and we'll keep you up to date on that and how you can help us support the Movember cause and raise money for men's health initiatives over the course of the month while the guys grow their stashes. So thanks again to everyone that is participating with us, and looking forward to doing some fun things with Modern Man throughout the month for Movember as well. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis and get this thing going, a big shout out to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our friends at Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, the great taste of the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, Modern Man Barbershop, as well as Vita Health, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, the Winnipeg Jets, and of course, the great taste of Little Brown Jug. Let's get Remis in here. And Remo, so first off, how did Halloween go? How did the kids enjoy it? And I'm most excited for your Halloween analytic report on candy and guests last night at the Remis household.
Yeah, the analytics got derailed. It's a lot tougher to keep analytics when you're trying to wrangle a 1-year-old and give out candy. So no analytics this year, but it was good. I started around like 5:45, went for like 45 minutes just on our street, got a nice haul. There was one house, maybe two, that had full-size bars, which was a win.
Big flex.
Yeah, which was certainly a win. We did not go back to that house multiple times, although joked about it. And there was a really nice group on our street of, kids around my son's age. So it's all his friends. It was a lot of fun. Great night out. We got out early before the sun went down. I haven't seen this much snow in a while. We definitely had to bundle up more, definitely more than last year. But I think Halloween's great. You get out, everyone's in a good mood. You see a lot of good costumes, eat candy. It's great.
What were the like of the kids? And I know you would have had probably a ton of younger kids coming over.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a most popular costume? Was there one that just kept on showing up each and every night, or was there just some that stood out?
Couple kid firefighters, but no, I don't think I really saw anything that said a lot of creative stuff out there. I don't even remember lots of them. My son, we got a Superman costume for him. He liked that. I don't even know if he knows Superman, but it's just such a sweet name, Superman.
Yeah, how can a 4-year-old not get into Superman?
How can you not get into that? So I had a great time, and I'm seeing people in chat as well. So I think we had Julian said he had 31 kids. I think we had about the same as
Donnie
normal.
Boy. Donnie Boy's on a busy block. 125 kids at Donnie Boy's spot.
Man, you got a budget
Running
for that.
Man had 46.
That's crazy. 125. No, there's some crazy streets out there that really get into it, I think, and all the kids know to go to it. That's not my street. I don't know. You don't want that many kids. I think we turned the lights out 8:30. We were done. It was getting dark. Maybe there are a couple stragglers, older kids lying around. But 8:30, they went and played hockey. So it was actually a pretty good night for me.
Hey, let me ask you. When you were a kid, trick-or-treating, what did you say at the door?
Trick or treat?
Trick or treat? Did you ever say Halloween apples?
I think my dad told us to say that. I do remember saying, because I saw, who was it? Was Barkevis tweeting about that?
Brent Bellamy. Brent Bellamy had a fascinating thread yesterday on Twitter about how Halloween apples was, I guess, some sort of a Winnipeg thing. And that if you're sort of over 35, you would probably remember that. I had no idea that was extinct. And again, Brent's Twitter feed is it Brent _Bellamy?
Yeah, I saw that he tweeted this too, and I see the picture with the UNICEF box. I remember people coming with those. I don't know if that. I think
UNICEF is done.
They're not around anymore, or do you just hold out your phone?
Did you see any UNICEF boxes last night? You tell me. You had boots on the ground. You were in the midst of it all.
I didn't see any. People just do their QR code now. Is it all digital? You just show. You just walk around with a QR code around your neck.
But anyways, this thread, and it's really interesting. I mean, you'd have to read it for yourself. You can't really go through the whole thing because it's somewhat long, but kind of diving into the history of how that, I had no idea that was a unique Winnipeg saying. And he dove in for the first sign of it in the newspapers and kind of the story behind it. And I mean, I guess at one point they were giving out apples. There was bobbing for apples. There was candy apples that were there. Halloween apples dipped in taffy. That was the thing. And I remember getting one or two of those as a kid and always think that was sort of a cool thing to have. And those are really good. But anyways, I just thought I'd bring that up. It was a really, really fascinating little read on Twitter. Much better than most of the stuff we get on that app quite often. But yeah, I guess that's not really a thing anymore. Like, did you ever hear anybody say that last night? Or I mean, I think it's pretty much just trick or treat.
No, my son was practicing his trick or treats, but I think he got a little shy at some of the doors. He kept going around yesterday saying trick or treat, smell my feet, but he wouldn't say that. Wouldn't say that to any of the houses we went to. But hauled out his bag, said thank you. It was fun. And then
Trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat.
Yeah, he's been repeating that one all week. He was ready, but I think practicing and game action are two different things when you're trick or treating.
Oh, Gene Okerlund in chat. UNICEF only takes Bitcoin, which probably is tough to put in the little boxes right now. And hey, Dale Barazuk, thank you very much for jumping on and becoming a member of Winnipeg Sports Talk. You love to see it. Anyways, everyone can now how was the haul though? I mean, were you eating all Evan's candy as you claim that he doesn't really like it?
Let's see. We split some. He didn't get as big. We didn't go as long as last year, I think, because it was so cold. He got a decent bag. What did we have? We had some all-dressed chips after we went for the chips. He likes Smarties. He actually likes Smarties, so he had Smarties. I don't know what else he had. I think that was it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We didn't have a lot of kids, so We have a lot of leftover candy here, so I just had a coffee crisp before the show, and my wife was having some Smarties. What else we got? Kit Kat. We got that one. Smarties, Kit Kat, coffee crisp. What's the other one? Arrow. We got that pack from Costco, so that's a great pack.
Nice. I just picked up a pack from Shoppers, I think, that had Snickers, both kinds of M&Ms, Twix, and Mars bars.
That's a good one, too.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good combo. Anyways, I hope everyone had a happy Halloween. But now we're into November. Can you believe it that the holidays are just around the corner? And speaking of which, of the holidays, just before we get into the important stuff to talk about today, everything happening around the National Hockey League and the rest of the world of sports. Here's a save the date notice for all of you folks. We're going to do a little holiday party on the 6th of December. It's a Wednesday for probably 7 o'clock till 9, something like that. Raise a little money for probably the Christmas cheerboard, I'd imagine. Have a few of Winnipeg's favorite beers down at Little Brown Jug. So mark that down. I think what we might do is similar to what we've done for the and we'll have details for this in the next few days. Similar to what we did for the trivia nights, what we might do is do a ticket. But that ticket, it'll be relatively inexpensive. It'll give us a pretty good idea about head count. And we'll just have all of the money from that. That will essentially be the donation. So I know I know the tickets for the last trivia night were $6.66. Gregory made a point of pointing that out to me a few times. But it'll be in and around that. Hopefully we'll make a nice donation of a few $100 to one of the very important Christmas charities, but give us a chance to get everybody together. And what I'm hoping to have, of course, they've got that Cool Checks bubble hockey game there. We may have to put together a little bit of a holiday tournament where you guys can take on us and some of the other WSTers. So there you go, folks. Mark that sucker down. December 6th. We'll shoot for 7 p.m. Little Brown Jug down in the Exchange. Should be a lot of fun. More details to come on that. All right. Reem, there's a bunch of things we want to get to right off the bat. We'll get to the Bomber, the CFL Awards in just a minute. Or actually, why don't we start there? Just because once we get on these hockey topics, it might kind of take us into DVD. I don't think there's any surprise that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are well represented and the Toronto Argonauts well represented when it comes to the final awards coming up for Grey Cup week. And it's the top two teams going head-to-head for the most outstanding player. No surprise, Chad Kelly gets the Eastern nomination, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that the Bomber nominee, Brady Oliveira, is going up against the quarterback of the 16-2 Argos after his 2,000-yard season that saw him nip Zach Collaros as the Bombers representative, and now he's representing the West.
Yeah, I saw some big outrage, mainly from Justin Dunk, who tagged us in a tweet saying, how could they not vote for Zach? He's the quarterback.
The replies went crazy.
And I think anyone who watched the Bombers, I mean, it's hard to argue with Brady's season. It's most outstanding player. And, maybe if it was most valuable, yeah, I think you'd probably pick the quarterback, but you can't really argue with his numbers. 2,000 all-purpose yards. That's only been done, I think, 15 times. I got to double
Second Canadian ever to do it after John Cornish.
So it hasn't been done for a while. Had an outstanding season. Carrying the ball, also receiving. So I had no problem with it. I mean, it was a tough call. My issue is with the way that this system goes. You can only get one nominee, but he beat out Vernon Adams in the West, and I think that's fair. Vernon Adams, not the most consistent, and I am curious if it's Oliveira versus Chad Kelly, because Chad Kelly, how many games has he really played? And they've kind of been resting for the last bit. So I mean,
he didn't play in the one game everyone wanted to see him in, and that was the one here in Winnipeg, protecting him, keeping him away from that Bomber defense. But listen, we all hope to see these teams go at it on the 19th of November at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton. We were just talking before the show about some plans for our Grey Cup events. And by the way, in chat, Bomber fans, anybody already making a plan to get out to Hamilton And if you already are, fantastic. Let us know. Maybe we'll do some sort of a WST gathering out in the Hammer if there's enough of you all coming out there. So let us know. If you're listening to the podcast later on and you are going, fire us a tweet at Sports Talk WPG. Who knows? There's often a lot of people that'll jump on it last minute after the team qualifies for the Grey Cup. Obviously, the Bombers still have some work left to do, but would love to see you guys there for that. Okay, let's run down this. Sure. Most outstanding nominee for the West is Brady Oliveira. For the East is Chad Kelly. Defensive Player of the Year, the West Division nominee is Matthew Betts. I mean, he had that crazy season in sacks. I don't think that should be a surprise. Darius Pickett, the Defensive Player for the East. Brady Oliveira also gets the Most Outstanding Canadian. Marc-Antoine Decoy of the Montreal Alouettes is the Eastern Division nominee. Now, in a way, I think that might harm Brady's chances to win the MOP. I have a feeling that there'll be some people who will say, well, we're voting Brady for the Outstanding Canadian. We'll vote for Chad Kelly for the Eastern nominee. And listen, Kelly certainly deserves to be there. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But Brady Oliveira up for both awards, the Canadian and the top player, which is definitely cool. And Jamarcus Hardrick of the Bombers gets the offensive lineman nod. He's going up against Dijon Allen of Toronto. You know, it's been Stanley Bryant. This year, Jamarcus Hardrick gets the nod. And man, it would be great to see him win that award, considering he has in some ways been a little bit in the shadow of Stanley Bryant, certainly around awards week each and every year. Special teams is Javon Leake from Toronto and Sean White. I think White is a slam dunk to win that one, considering his incredible season kicking for the BC Lions. Rookie of the Year nominees, Kai Gray from the Edmonton Elks and Quantez Striggers of Toronto. What an amazing name. Quantez, QWAN''TEZ. That's one of the great names in the entire. I would vote for him just because of his name. And then, of course, you've got the Coach of the Year nominees. No surprise there. Mike O'Shea and the Dinwizzle, Ryan Dinwiddie from the Argos. A lot of Bombers, a lot of Argos. And when you look at the seasons both of those teams had, I don't think we should be surprised.
Yeah, not surprised. Those are the two premier teams in the league. And just looking at league leaders, Chad Kelly did actually play. I was ripping on him for not playing some games. I guess it was just here and maybe sparingly in other games, but he did play majority of the games. He was third in the league in passing TDs. How about Zach up there, number one passing TDs? Passing yards was Vernon Adams, who Brady beat out in the West. Number two is Zach. I mean, he had a pretty outstanding. We can talk about pick sixes and mistakes and stuff, but I mean, his overall numbers are up there with any QB. And part of that is, how many QBs in the league were starting the whole season? There's so many QB injuries around the league. And here looking at rushing yards, there's Brady, 1534. Next closest, Kevin Brown, 1141. And Brady leading the league in rushing TDs as well. Brady's got, just under 500 receiving yards as well to go with those 1,500 rushing yards. So I'm curious. I do wonder if they do give it to quarterback Chad Kelly, but I think hard to argue with Brady. And I wonder if it was Zach, would Zach have a better shot of beating Chad Kelly because he's a quarterback and his quarterback numbers are better than Chad Kelly's quarterback numbers?
Well, let's start this right now. Brady Oliveira for MOP. I know I just said that it might be easier to vote for Chad Kelly because he certainly get the Canadian votes, but he's fourth in passing yards, third in touchdowns, 10 behind Zach Collaros. Mm-hmm. And Brady Oliveira is far and away the best at his position, and it had to be that to get the nominee. So I don't know. It'll be on us to keep on stroking Brady Oliveira. So there you go, Bomber Award winners and nominees from the West and the East for the awards show, which will happen in Hamilton on Grey Cup weekend. All right, let's get to the NHL. Derek VanDiest going to join us in just a couple minutes. A very quiet career off the ice for Paul Stastny and a very quiet retirement. Pierre LeBrun writing in The Athletic late that he was just checking in to see how things are going with Paul. And he said, oh, yeah, haven't filed yet, but decided in September that was it. What a great career for a guy that speaks so highly of his time in Winnipeg and made an impact everywhere he played.
Yeah, 1,145 games, 822 points in his career, 146 games with the Jets, and he had 87 points and spoke very highly, as you said, in that article in The Athletic with Pierre LeBrun. He wasn't the flashiest player. He wasn't the fastest player, and didn't have the best shot, but you could tell he thought the game very well, very smart, always in the right spot, always passing very well. And he was kind of the one player, Huss, who, when he centered Line A and Ehlers, he kind of was able to unlock both of their talents. He fit in so well here. It was unfortunate that he had to sign that contract with Vegas at the after that season. You wonder what kind of impact he could have made here in 2018-19, but we can that's picking on that. But great career. Started with drafted with Colorado, then St. Louis, Winnipeg, Vegas, and spent a quiet year last year in Carolina, impactful with them on the fourth line. He played 11, almost 12 minutes a night. You probably could have hung on somewhere else, but I think you get older, you played a while, 37, almost 38 in December, and you got family concerns. Maybe you get tired of moving around and going through the motions, I guess.
I don't know. He said it's not like he still loves the game, but just sort of knew it was time. And it was a great piece from LeBrun, talking about his relationship with his dad and how Peter was pretty much always right. And, the time was right for Paul Stastny to retire. So, listen, congratulations on a great, great season, a great career. I think the last time we had him on the program was when he played his 1,000th game. So we'll certainly reach out and see if we can get Paul back at some point, talk a little bit of his time in Winnipeg and the great career that he had. Derek VanDiest is going to join us right away. I'll certainly talk about this with him, Remo, but the huge news today. Well, first of all, Nick Backstrom stepping away from the Washington Capitals. Very emotional Caps locker room. Not sure whether that's the last we've seen of him. He's dealing with health issues and has not been himself so far this season. But holy smokes, the Ottawa Senators get the hammer dropped by the National Hockey League. Find a first-round pick in either 24, 25, or 26 for not disclosing Evgeny Dadonov's no-trade clause to the Vegas Golden Knights in an embarrassing mishap that looked bad on the Golden Knights. They maintained that they did nothing wrong. They've been vindicated in this, and the National Hockey League really treating this with a heavy hand.
Yeah, just on Nicholas Backstrom, as 35 years old, coming off multiple surgeries. He thought he sat out all last season, thought he could come back, and just hasn't been able to play at the level that you've known him to, and stepping away for injury-related reasons. That was unfortunate, and that was a bomb, Huss. We had last week Shane Pinto suspended 41 games, harsh punishment, and today Ottawa, it'll be a first-round pick. They get to choose which year, 24, 25, 26, but not disclosing, the no trade protection with the Dadonov deal to Vegas. And remember, at that deadline, Vegas tried to deal Dadonov to Anaheim, and then it got vetoed because they didn't know. And as you said, they said they did nothing wrong. They fought this and vindicated Kelly McCrimmon and George McPhee. And Ottawa is having a press conference later this afternoon. You wonder what it means for the future of Pierre Dorion. They have the new ownership group, new president Steve Staios as well. We'll see what they come out and say. But the NHL not really giving a lot of details, as they said. That's all. They put out their press release and said that's all we're going to say. So you have these two big suspensions. Not a ton of details are known about the Pinto suspension and this one as well.
Yeah, what a couple weeks it's been for the Ottawa Senators. Jeez. Well, and listen, we know what it's like being a general manager in a Canadian market, the amount of scrutiny you're under, the spotlight that you're under, the pressure. I'm just imagining, like, if Kevin Cheveldayoff here, if Ken Holland, in Edmonton, had made a mistake like this where it was managerial malpractice that had cost their team a first-round selection. Listen, you think things get heated in the chat every now and then. Just imagine what the scene would be like with that. I think this is only the second time a first-round pick has been forfeited. Of course, the other time was the Coyotes' 2021 first from the John Chaika fitness testing draft prospects outside of the regulations.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, and then, of course, the Sens are going to lose a first pick in one of those next 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a couple times cap friendly. They say the 9th time it's been forfeited. You remember the Devils?
So just a draft pick, period.
Oh, draft
not a
pick
first
period.
round.
Sorry, first. You're right. Second first. And the Devils had to forfeit a 3rd round pick in 2011, but because of the Kovalchuk contract. But yeah, the crazy first round pick. That's a big penalty, us, in terms of, it's pretty simple. Guy's got a no trade clause, and you trade him. You got to tell what the next team, and they said what Vegas thought that it wasn't submitted, and it was, and Ottawa didn't let them know. We're pretty sure that is what happened, but big punishments for Ottawa. And for a year, Huss, I mean, this is the year they're supposed to take the step forward. We've been hearing about all these young players for so long. Tim Stützle, Drake Batherson, Thomas Chabot, who's injured, Jake Sanderson. I mean, this is a good team, and a lot of off-ice stuff going on. So hopefully for them, it's a very late first-round pick if things go the way you think.
As I say, we're expecting Derek VanDiest. We'll talk to him about that and then focus in on the Western Canadian teams. JP Vigier coming up, Scott Billeck as well. Listen, as we get into November, a big shout out to Movember. I mentioned the WST team. Big thanks to Raymond, Chris Nielsen, Derek Honer, Derek Schmidt, Leighton Janis, Stephen Ostash, Dave Asplund, and the one and only One Bird for jumping on with us. We're teaming up with Modern Man to raise important funds for men's health. And the WST team will be wearing the stashes. Maybe on Friday. We've already got a couple picks. We'll show off the clean-shaven WSTers that are part of the team. And then we'll keep tabs on those stashes throughout the afternoon. But Remo, fill people in. I mean, obviously, we've got the WST team set up. We're hoping people can make donations and support the cause. And we do have that, if you're watching on YouTube right now, the QR code, which can take you right directly to the WST page to throw a donation down.
Yeah, we've got a team page here. So if you're listening on the podcast or here, on YouTube, it's in the description of the show, winnipegsportstalk.com. It is at the top of the menu. If you're on your phone, you got to click the 3 dots on the top right to bring up that menu. And yeah, if you want to scan the QR code, the QR code is right there. If you're watching on your TV, you can take your phone up and just scan it, and it'll take you to the page. Donate. We've already got a couple donations as well. We started off with a little. Chris Nielsen is in. So we have, I'll show you. So here's our team on the page. Kind of cool how they do this.
Looking good, guys.
And then there's Derek Honer. He's got wearing the WST hoodie.
Right on, Derek.
Clean shaven. Who else we got? There's Chris right there. All these guys, Mike Lindbergh, clean shaven. He's got a Chiefs hat. So
Mike. Oh yeah, that's right. Mike was in there. Mike, by the way, I don't know if you were able to sign up because I was sending to that email that you had.
I got him. He's in. I sent him to a different one.
Okay, Mike Lindbergh. Sorry, I don't think I mentioned Mike when I was running down the squad. So, and great hat as well, Mike. So you know how to do it. Modern Man's also running a bit of a contest for everyone that is growing stashes throughout the month. We'll let you know about that. But basically, what you need to do is just jump by any of the Modern Man barbershops in town. I mean, there are 8 locations. I think they're up to 9 now. So there's one near you. And you'll probably need to wait a week or two to get that stash going. But just snap a selfie in front of a Modern Man. And we'll let you know they got some great prize packs as well for people that are supporting the cause. So big shout out to Modern Man and especially Team WST for our Movember initiative. And we'll look forward to continuing that and having some fun with it throughout the month. And most importantly, raising some money. And thanks to everyone that's donated so far. Great start for the Movember squad. We got to thank our friends at Aquatech. I mean, they're the pool experts in town, but unfortunately, it's not really pool season in Winnipeg right now. However, whole home renovations start with Aquatech. With thousands of renos as their foundation, Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're ready to enhance your kitchen, your bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, Visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. And we talked a lot about Halloween, a little colder than normal. There's already ice forming on the river. Winter is here, folks. Are you ready for it? That's the question that Manitoba Battery has for you. Make sure that your battery is good to go for the cold Winnipeg winter. If you want to come by for a free test, pop by and see them at 1026 Logan Avenue. They'll be happy to test it for you. But if you do know that your car or truck needs a battery, shop local. Get the best price in town, bar none. Manitoba Battery beats the pants off the big box stores when it comes to price. And the best service, as they will be delivering it to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It is just that easy. And of course, they've got the winter ready sale right now with another $10 off their great prices on all automotive batteries. Head on down right now to manitobabattery.com. Get your order in. You can give them a phone call if you've got any questions. Great staff there will help you out, 783-8787. And, of course, you can pop down and see them at 1026 Logan Avenue. And, hey, got to remind you, folks, I mean, it's we'll have an extra week before we get to IG Field and enjoying some CC and Gingers and hopefully toasting some CC to the Bombers heading to the Grey Cup. But November 4th, coming up this Saturday, is the Manitoba Liquor Mart's Premium Spirits release. And Canadian Club has a limited one-time release of their Invitation Series 15-year-old sherry cask. Get on down, limited supplies. This won't be around long. A perfect gift for the whiskey lover in your life. $79.99, the Canadian Club Invitation Series 15-year-old sherry cask. Saturday, November 4th at Manitoba Liquor Marts. And again, a huge thanks to Canadian Club for their support of us. Of course, the official spirit of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. And we always remind you to please enjoy responsibly. All right, let's talk some pucks. Had a great time meeting up with Derek VanDiest of NHL.com a couple weeks ago when we were in Edmonton. And of course, last week in Edmonton, maybe a little busier than the one before with the Heritage Classic. Derek covering all four Western Canadian teams for NHL.com. Joins us now, DVD. It was great to meet you and great to have you on Winnipeg Sports Talk. How are you?
Good. I'm doing well. Thanks. Thanks for having me on.
I want to talk to you about the Jets and Canucks and all the teams, but first off, how was the week before I was there was a lot of anticipation for the Heritage Classic, a lot of worry afterwards that McDavid wouldn't be a part of it. He sort of came back, saved the day. What was now you're a few days removed, how much of a success was the event?
Oh, it was a great success. It was a fantastic event. They pulled it off at the end. There was a little concern when it came to whether or not the stadium would be sold out. There was concern whether or not Connor McDavid would be able to play. There was concern about hopefully the weather would hold up because it was a little chilly going in. But it all came together at the last minute. The stadium was sold out. The game was a fantastic game, and Connor McDavid was able to play. And then the Oilers won. And I think that's kind of what made it a good event for a lot of the fans in the stands. A lot of people from Calgary came up to Edmonton to watch this event, which was good as well. So I think they put on another outdoor game, and we were talking about this. I think I talked about this with a few people from the NHL about how people are still talking about that game 20 years ago when it happened. It was played in -25, and there's Oilers and the Canadians, and you hope that 10, 20, 15, 20 years from now, people will be talking about this game because it went off without a hitch. It was a fantastic event. The only concerns of the entire event were how crowded the concourse got, but that was kind of expected when you packed 55,000 people into that stadium. So it was a fantastic event overall.
Well, and listen, having McDavid back was huge for the Oilers, huge for the league, and huge for the event as well. The one thing that seemingly was absent from it, and I think back to the 2015 game here in Winnipeg and what a huge success that was. The alumni game for that event with the old 80s Oilers and the Winnipeg Jets, to be honest, was almost as big as the real game when it came to the star power of it all. No alumni game this year. Was that, were you surprised at that? And is that something that they're sort of phasing out?
I was a little surprised at that, and I think a lot of it had to do with the alumni game 20 years ago really chopped up the ice. They really had troubles fixing the ice after the alumni game was played. They only had a couple hours to kind of fix the ice. And so I think that really affected the quality of play in the game that counted. And I think that's something that they were looking at and saying, listen, in the NHL, there's a rule no one can be on the ice. I think it's like 3 hours before a game or something like that. So they wanted to kind of abide by that because they saw what happened the last time. They had a lot of alumni in town. They had a lot of players that had played in that game 20 years ago in town. They honored them on the Thursday night when the Rangers were here. But as far as playing a game, I think they just said, listen, last time we did this, it was just too much for that ice surface. We just don't want to get into that situation again where we aren't able to kind of fix it up for the regular season game. So they decided to forego the alumni game. They had a lot of alumni events. There was a lot of people here. They kind of tied it in with that. But yeah, no alumni game. I think it would have been fun to see some of the old Flames and some of the old Oilers out on the ice again. But I think that was one of the reasons is just they felt that ice surface outdoors probably couldn't handle 2 games in a span of a couple hours.
Now, DVD, I want to get back to your thoughts on the Jets and the rest of the teams in the West, but I just have to ask you about the big news today. The Ottawa Senators getting clipped a first-round pick for the mishap in relation to the trade protection of Evgeny Dadonov. I see Frank Saravelli just in the last 5 minutes tweeting that sources say that Sens are making a change of position at the GM position and Pierre Dorion out after 8 seasons. But what do you make of the punishment and the situation that this does to the Ottawa Senators under new ownership, now paying the price for something that happened in the past?
Yeah, I think that's always the issue, right? The new ownership and the new kind of regime is going to pay for the sins of the past, and this is something that happened 2 years ago, and it's been taken 2 years to kind of investigate the situation where they tried to trade a player that had a no movement clause. I think I recall the situation, and then they had to send him back because of that whole situation, and now they obviously figured that they knew he had a no movement clause and they traded him anyway. But yeah, this is going to really, really hamstring the Ottawa Senators. Now, I think the draft pick is they can choose whether it's 2024, 2025, or 2026. I believe I saw in the release. So yeah, this is not good. This is not good if you have a new regime there. Steve Staios is there now. They have a new ownership now. Yeah, it's not good for the old regime, and I think this might be a third strike here for Pierre Dorion if this comes back to him. And when you get punished, that's a severe punishment when you take away a first-round pick. And I think it's only happened 7 times before in the history of the league where the team has come down and punished a team that bad. And so the crime usually fits the punishment. So you know that the Senators did something that they probably shouldn't have been doing a couple of years ago. And yeah, it's not a good way to start, especially if you've got a young team and you want to add to that young core, and you want to turn that franchise around. That's a big blow to not have a first-round pick to not just use, but to deal with or to kind of use. And that's a huge asset to lose if you're an organization like the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I mean, listen, I know a lot of the online discourse is like, where was that sort of a punishment for the Blackhawks and the the sexual assault scandal and whatnot? I mean, 2 very different things. I won't speak to that. I mean, they've refined a lot of money. A lot of people lost their jobs. But when it comes to, I think the reason why this was of such importance was the effect that it had on the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, they were making that trade in concert with some other moves of trying to, do the Jack Eichel deal at that time. And Vegas was very clear, like they did nothing wrong. In some ways, this is somewhat vindication for them. Not that Ottawa losing a first-round pick helps them out at all, but a very clear message from the NHLPA to the member clubs that this better not happen again, or there are serious consequences.
Yeah, exactly, and that's it's a big punishment. I think a lot of people looked at that this morning and go, "Wow, okay, that's big," and that's that's something else. You can't try and pull a fast one on the league, and I think maybe that's what they thought here is that the Ottawa Senators are trying to pull a fast one here, and by trading a player at a no movement clause. So I think, that's something that they obviously felt that Senators knew they were doing something wrong, and they still try to get away with it. And I think that's maybe why the punishment was so harsh.
DVD, let's get to your beat covering the 4 Western Canadian teams for the National Hockey League. And I'll tell you what, if you'd told me that you were coming on the show 10 games into the season and we'd start by talking about the Vancouver Canucks, I would have thought you might have been nuts, but I think we almost have to. a big win last night. The Tocchet effect seems to be working. He's benching guys at part of the game. They're coming back and scoring goals. Elias Paterson is truly a superstar in this league right now. Tell us about the Canucks start to the season, what you've seen, and just how impressive their out of the gate period has been, challenging Vegas at the top of that Pacific Division.
Yeah, it's been impressive. They do have some stars on that team. It's not like they don't have an absence of stars. Quinn Hughes is a star. Elias Pettersson's a star. They have a very good goaltender, and Thatcher Demko is playing extremely well. But I also think that they have that new attitude under Rick Tocchet, that they've come in. Rick Tocchet came in last year and right away questioned this team's work ethic and desire and drive. And he said, we're going to change this attitude of this hockey team. Like, this team, we have to work harder. We have to be harder to play against. We have to be harder in front of the net, harder in the corners, harder everywhere on the ice. And we saw that firsthand in the first 2 games against the Oilers. They simply outworked the Oilers. They destroyed them in the opening game. And then they were able to kind of sneak out that second game. But I think that's basically been the MO here. And talking to the Canucks, seeing them come into town, and they're just maturing. Like, Elias Pettersson, when he came into the league, he was such a skinny little guy. Like, it was almost surprising how thin he was. And now he's really kind of bulking up. You can see him maturing. You can see him getting bigger. Quinn Hughes, the same thing. He was a young kid. Now he's maturing and getting bigger. So you're seeing a lot of these guys kind of coming to their own. And then really, they have a great supporting cast there. And they're getting it done by committee. I think there's a lot of guys that are chipping in, and all 4 lines are going. All 6 defensemen are contributing. And they're getting great goaltending. So I think there's something there. Excuse me. I think there's something there. A lot of people think, are the Canucks for real? And I think, yeah, they might be, because they've been a hard team to play against. Even though the games that they've lost, they've played hard. So, yeah, they were very impressive last night. I was up watching that game, and I was very impressed with just their work ethic and their ability to kind of take advantage of their chances. So I think they're for real, and that just throws another mix into this tough division. They said the Pacific Division is going to be a tough division. I think that just throws another curveball into that. And I like their game right now. And can they maintain that for 82 games? We'll have to see, because they play hard every night.
Well, Tocchet's going to keep his foot on the gas and demand the accountability from players that maybe hadn't been there in the past. We may as well go from west to east and finish up with the Jets. You mentioned the Pacific Division in a lot of ways. The Central, which was such a meat grinder for the last few years, has sort of weakened, and the strength has sort of moved west to the Pacific, which is very challenging for the Alberta teams who've had very, very tough starts. I think a lot of people kind of were shocked by the 8-1 win by Vancouver over the Oilers in game number 1, and then coming to Edmonton and winning game number 2 has not gone well for Edmonton so far. Now, granted, they got Connor McDavid back and they won the Winter Classic, and that's going to be maybe a jumping off point, but expectations are so high for Edmonton, Derek. How would you assess their play so far, and how this team is handling the pressure of being a preseason Stanley Cup favorite early on this season?
Well, I don't think they've handled it well early on, and I think they had this bit of a sense of entitlement coming into the season early on, where they thought, well, we're just going to show up, and teams are going to realize that, hey, we got Connor McDavid, we got Leon Draisaitl, we got Evander Kane, we got Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, we have all these great players, and they're just roll over for us. And that's not happening. They are playing hard. Like, they're getting there is a sense that they knew that other teams were going to use them as a benchmark. They were going to use them to see where they were in the standings or how they kind of fit in the league. And then the teams are playing them hard, and the owners have to realize that, you know what, they have to play hard. It's a long road back to the playoffs. It's not just let's just start in the playoffs again and hopefully we can make on that run. It's a long, hard road back. And I think they realize that. They're starting to realize that, hey, teams are going to play us hard. We have to elevate our game. And right now, the problem is with the Oilers is they're not getting any secondary scoring. They're not getting any help from the bottom half of that lineup. I think they got 5 or 6 guys without a point so far, 8 games into the season. So I think those guys have to kind of step it up a little bit. They need a bit more offense from the bottom end. And last year, they had so many guys that had career years that this year there was going to be a natural dip in that. Guys, you can't go from one career year to the next. There's obviously a natural dip. Nugent-Hopkins is not going to get 100 points this year. Other players are not going to get 20 goals like they did last year. So I think they have to figure that out. And the for Heritage Classic was a good step. I thought they worked hard. They played hard in that game. They were up 3-2 going in the third period. I thought they managed the game well in the third period. But again, they're playing against a Calgary team who's really, really, really struggling right now. They can't figure it out. And they're wondering in Calgary whether they continue doing the way we're doing or do we blow it up. So I think that's something that they're really going to have to figure out in Calgary.
Well, yeah.
Hopefully they turn it around in Edmonton.
You know what? Just before we get to the Flames, and you mentioned just the lack of bottom six scoring. I mean, is it there and just needs to come around, or I mean, Ken Holland and his crew? I mean, do they have some more lineup adjustments or a massaging of the roster that needs to happen if this team is going to meet its potential that many people believe that it has?
I think they do have to massage the roster a little bit. I think they have to kind of find that mix that they had last year. Like last year, everything went well for them. Everything worked out. And I think they're just not having that mix right now this year. I think they're having issues with that, and they'll figure it out. But it's just a matter of just trying to find that right mix here.
As concerning as the start is in Edmonton, I think everyone realizes they're still in a pretty good spot considering the horses they've got in the lineup. Very different feeling around the Flames right now. I mean, I was at the game, the opening game of the season, and the Jets sort of blew that one. They were clearly the better team for most of the 60 minutes. That's one of only 2 wins the Calgary Flames have on the season, and they've got a very good Dallas Stars in the team in the Dome tonight. Coming out of the loss to their arch rivals in the Winter Classic, how dire does the situation feel this early around the Flames?
It's really dire. It's a situation where you got Jonathan Huberdeau locked up for a long time. You got Nazem Kadri locked up for a long time. Those are going to be your 2 pillars, and they're not playing very well. So I think that's the issue right now, is that those 2 guys aren't playing very well. They got, I think, 6 or 7 guys that are up for UFAs this year. So they're going to have to do, what are they going to do with those guys? Are they going to try and re-sign him? Are they going to go in a different direction? There's a lot of decisions to be made here. Do you blow up this team and start again, or do you hope to kind of be able to salvage that? And then I feel bad for Craig Conroy because those weren't his signings. He didn't sign Huberdeau for that long. He didn't sign Kadri for that big contract, I think. And so now he's kind of taken those over, and now he's got to move forward with these contracts. So, there's going to be some tough decisions to be made in Calgary.
You got Lindholm, of course, Noah Hannafin as pending UFAs. How much time do you think Craig Conroy gives this club where they are before they make a move if this team doesn't make a significant turnaround?
I think about 30 to 40 games is a good time frame. Then you see where you are at the 30 game mark. You see where you are at, in that area. Usually, teams say that American Thanksgiving, if you're not in the playoffs at American Thanksgiving, probably won't be in the playoffs. So I think there's some issues there. But yeah, I think you have to give it at least give them time to kind of recover and regroup. So I think 30, 40 games, and once you get to that mark, then I think some hard decisions will have to be made.
Derek VanDiest of NHL.com with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I can't have you on WST without talking about the other team on your beat. You've seen them play in Calgary and in Edmonton so far this year, Derek. What were your expectations of the Jets, and how does what they've done on the ice compare to what you were thinking to see from Winnipeg?
I like the Jets. I like the moves that they made. I really do think that they are probably one of the deepest teams up front in the National Hockey League. I do believe that they have the ability to roll those 4 lines. My concern was who's going to score all the goals for the Jets, but I think they're going to do that by committee, and I think they're really, really fine in the game. You're right. I was at that first game when they played Calgary, and they should have won that game. But that's the type of style of hockey they're playing. They're a team that just keeps coming at you and tries to wear you down, and they're able to do that with the 4 lines that they have right now. They're able to kind of just wear you down and keep going and keep going. And I really like the makeup of this team. I like their back end. Obviously, they got a great goalie. And if he's playing well, then everything kind of fits into place. So I do like the way the Jets are going. I think right now, they've lost a game in overtime and a shootout the other day, I believe. So I think they're there. They just got to find the goals from other sources. And I think, if they get 3 goals a game, 4 goals a game, they're going to win those games because I think defensively they're that good enough. It's just a matter of getting to that 3 or 4 goal mark. Might be an issue, but I really like the depth that they have, and I think that they need the entire lineup to contribute to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the big differences from the first week. I mean, Hellebuck didn't look like Hellebuck for his first 3 starts, and right now, which is quite in contrast to what we've seen the last few years. The special teams have been an anchor for the team as opposed to something that's sort of propped them up. We're going to get into the power play with the Winnipeg Jets a little later on with JP Vigier. But before we go, as someone that covers from a league perspective on those 4 teams, there was so much talk in the offseason about the pending UFAs in Calgary and especially in Winnipeg. Thanksgiving was a huge day here in the PEG as the Jets announced dual identical signings of Hellebuyck and Scheifele. What do you think about that move to commit to those guys? The message it sends both in Winnipeg and the league of star players like that staying here and doing it for the same amount of money, really seemingly buying into the team together.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's the key there. They believe that they have the core here to win a Stanley Cup. And they've been part of this core for a long, long time. They like the way things are going here. They like the way the team has been built, and they want to be a part of it. Now, it's one of those things that would they have gotten that kind of length of contract? I think they would have got the money, but the length somewhere else, you don't know. But I think what Winnipeg wants to do, and I know that they have a good young crop of players coming up, they want to kind of just keep building on their success. They don't want to tear it all down and start it all up again. And if you lose those 2 guys, then that looks like kind of a full rebuild. So I think they want to kind of maintain that core. And I think they believe their window is still open. I think their window is still open, and they're going to take a run for it here. I think they have a really good young they have a good core. They have a lot of good young players around them, and they have a lot of good young players coming up. So I think there's going to be a lot of years of success in Winnipeg, and I think they saw that and they said, hey, we don't want to blow this up and rebuild it. We have a lot of good things going on here.
Derek VanDiest of NHL.com with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk DVD. This was awesome having you on. I know you're filling the big shoes of our old pal Tim Campbell on the Western Canadian beat. Just before we go, fill people in on what you've got cooking at NHL.com and where they can find all of your content.
Well, all my content is on NHL.com. We just wrapped up all the work for the Heritage Classic, so it's been good. Doing some work with the Hall of Fame inductions coming up. That's going to be exciting on Monday. I did a big piece on Pierre Lacroix being inducted in the Hall of Fame. I talked to a lot of people that had worked with him back in the day. So yeah, we go to the Hall of Fame inductions, and then we kind of roll through the season. So I'll be covering the Western Canada beat, and hopefully I'll get out to Winnipeg soon.
Let us know when you pop by the PEG. We'll have a cold one waiting for you. Thanks so much for doing this. Good. Really appreciate it, Derek.
No problem. Anytime. Thank you.
Give him a follow on Twitter at Derek VanDiest, and make sure to check out his work at NHL.com. Great stuff. Had a real fun time hanging out with him and Tommy Gazzola when I was out for that game a couple weeks ago. We're going to focus in now on the Winnipeg Jets. Billeck coming up a little later on. We've got a great conversation coming up. We're going to ask JP Vigier on his early season thoughts on all aspects of the Winnipeg Jets and try to figure out how to get that playoff or that power play moving. Of course, the Jets in Vegas tomorrow night, in Arizona Saturday afternoon, 3 p.m. game, Tuesday in St. Louis, and then back. Your next time to catch the Jets live is a week Thursday. Big Central Division matchup against the Nashville Predators. I know they're doing a Moose promo that night with we're going to find out more about that next week, kind of maybe celebrating a little bit of the history of the team that paved the way in between NHL incarnations. So as an old Moose guy, I'm really looking forward to that. But of course, you've got smaller packages available at winnipegjets.com as well, and single game tickets for that game. The Dallas game now moved to 2 p.m. on November 11th. Finish up the game at the rink, and maybe head down to the stadium for a good old Winnipeg doubleheader before the West Final. And then the New Jersey Devils in town as well. And then a back-to-back game, Buffalo and Arizona on Grey Cup weekend. What a sports weekend that'll be with 2 home games. And then hopefully our home team playing in Hamilton for the Grey Cup. WinnipegJets.com for more information on ticket information and all the upcoming games on the 5-game homestand beginning next Thursday. Let me thank our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market, who have great prices, gang, on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, groceries, and Winnipeg's largest selection of local products, too. And with the snow on the ground and maybe people not wanting to get out as much, let them take care of it for you. Online ordering is available at their fully shoppable website at myvita.ca. And And if you get your order in by 11 a.m., you'll enjoy same-day delivery from Vita Health. And if you wait till later on in the day, you'll get it the next day. Hey, by the way, don't let the stress of the upcoming holidays and the winter upon us get to you. Try Health First Ashwagandha Supreme, known for its stress-lowering effects, effective for reducing mental stress, anxiety, cortisol levels, and even stress-related food cravings. And even better, Winnipeggers love a deal. Health First Ashwagandha Supreme on sale all month at Vita Health. Proudly family-owned and operated in Winnipeg since 1936. Vita Health Fresh Market, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations and online at myvita.ca. Well, what a last few months it's been for Wallace & Wallace. We all know that they are the fencing experts in town, and we've seen their fences and trucks all over the city. What you might not know is that they're also the leaders in overhead doors as the Clopay dealer in Manitoba. And that overhead garage door of yours had lots of ups and downs this summer, getting you and your family to all that summer fun. But that garage door is about to work a whole lot harder because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service. Call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or two you need to know, and that, of course, is Wallace & Wallace. And hey, with the holidays around the corner, now we're into November. I still can't believe it. Guys, you might be looking in that closet and thinking, geez, I need to up my menswear game for the winter and what is to come. Well, if you are in that category, you need to get on down and see Andrew, Alex, and the gang at F Apparel. So much waiting for you to look a little better for those big dates, including custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles to go great with that suit, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories you won't find any better anywhere. So it's all there for you at F Apparel. And don't forget, if you're getting married or in a wedding party, talk to the guys at F about a 15% discount for wedding parties when you get the suits for the fellas over at F Apparel. Pop by and see them, 190 Smith Street downtown. You can make an appointment online at that's EPHapparel.com. All right, Scott Billeck coming up a little later on. Right now, though, it's been a minute since we've had JP Vigier join the program. Let's welcome Vigier now to get his thoughts on the early season Winnipeg Jets. Vigier, what's going on? How are you?
Yeah, we're good. Enjoying some snow. It feels like hockey season out there.
Yeah, it definitely feels like hockey season. You know, we usually always get it around Halloween. We got it a few days early, and I don't think it's going anywhere. But you're right. It is hockey season right now. We're buckled up and ready for it. Hey, just before we get into talking a little Jets, I like the you've done something with the digs there. Is that an old Orlando Solar Bears jersey on the back?
It is. Long time ago, my wife, for my 30th birthday, put all these jerseys in professional frames and did a fantastic job. So now they're up around the house, and we relive our glory days.
You got some, what are those, championship hats from all the rings that you've got? What else is in there?
I hung up every championship hat. They've never been washed since they've been worn on championship night. So some are a little bit yellow and full of champagne and beer and whatever else is thrown on there, some sweat. And then, so I like to keep some of the memories around because you work hard for them. You might as well enjoy them.
No doubt about it. Vij, let's get to it. I mean, we're very early into the season. I want to specifically focus in on the power play and the special teams with you in a minute because that's been somewhat problematic for the Winnipeg Jets. But overall, and especially at 5-on-5, what have you thought about the 2023 squad as opposed to what we saw finish the season last year against Vegas?
Well, we've seen a deeper lineup, right? The subtraction of PLD and the addition of the 3 players really comes in and provides a lot of options for Rick Bowness and company, and I think you're seeing that. They've talked about being able to play the 4th line against almost anyone. We're seeing them, play and be effective and do something. At times back last year, the 4th line wasn't playing, wasn't doing anything, so you don't really know. They didn't feel like part of the team. Right now, we're getting contributions from the 1st line, the 2nd line, the 3rd line, the 4th line, and you can probably intermingle these lines and pieces anywhere. So we're seeing depth. It's a model that's been coming to the National Hockey League. You're seeing less top-heavy teams. You look at the Vegas Golden Knights, the St. Louis Blues, teams who have won, the Colorado Avalanche, who have won the Stanley Cup have some high-end talent, and then sprinkle depth throughout the lineup. You're going to need your difference makers, but you also need to count because it is a long season. One guy can't carry the team. Let's go look at Edmonton. They're super top-heavy, and right now we're not sure what's going on there because they are struggling to find their identity. And if Connor McDavid and Draisaitl don't get 5 points a game, they're losing.
Within the team dynamic, I mean, listen, I think we all know that at times in the past, the Winnipeg Jets have played their fourth line, 5 minutes of charity shifts at some point, but basically it was a 3-line team. What does it do to the other 3 lines when you are developing a reliable fourth line that can play double-digit minutes on a nightly basis?
Well, it keeps them accountable, right? If they're not on, look who's going to get a few more minutes, a few more shifts, right? I think you have accountability throughout your lineup. If, Cole Perfetti line's not going, guess who's getting more minutes? Kupari and Lowry are probably going to split those minutes coming through. So it keeps everyone on their toes and hungry because darn well if you're not having your game, you might miss 1 or 2 shifts, which doesn't sound like a lot, but a hockey player, that's like life and death right there, missing a shift and knowing that I got to be on. So that keeps everyone accountable and hungry through the year.
I kind of want to ask you about a few players, but you mentioned Perfetti. We may as well start there. I mean, a brief audition at center, a move to the wing with Nemetsnikov in the middle, playing with Ehlers, who missed all of training camp, who I think has been really up and down, been better over the last couple games, but you see the best of Ehlers in one game, not so much the next. Talk to us, if you would, about the challenges that Perfetti's going right now and the fact that he has been, I think he's number 1 in the league in primary assists right now in limited ice time compared to many of the other players. So what have you thought about just his situation in the early part of the season for the young forward?
Well, I was excited to see what he was going to do down the middle. But I think, let's go back to every NHL player. Paul Maurice stuck, who did he stick with? Patrick Laine, Nikolai Ehlers, old faithful Brian Little, to help them grow their game, understand the pace, control things. And I think this is basically, was Cole Perfetti ready for that move to play down the middle? I think that's a lot to ask, who's had limited experience and has been banged up for a long time during his tenure in the National Hockey League so far. So to me, it's a quick test to see if he's ready. I think he showed bits and pieces of being ready, but there is so much responsibility on that center offensively, defensively, covering for your line mates and so on, that it was maybe a touch too much to ask too early for him to do. Moving him to the wing has kind of let him just play. And it took a week or 10 days for him to kind of find his groove on the wing. It kind of had left him, but now we're seeing him win a few puck battles, understand when to chip the puck out and so on. And adding Nemetsnikov down the middle, well, there's the Brian Little security blanket. He does a little bit of everything. He's always in the right place. He may not get you 1,000 points, but he's going to chip in offensively, be good on the D zone, make sure the puck gets to those offensive players, and he'll create a little bit offensively as well. So I think that's been a security blanket. And then adding Nick Ehlers, who is just starting to find his stride. No training camp. We see it year after year. There's a holdout of a player who doesn't have a contract. What's the optics of that year? They always struggle to find themselves offensively, kind of chasing the game, trying to find a rhythm with the team. So Nikolai Ehlers is trying to find rhythm in himself early. Looks to have sort of found it here and there, not consistently yet, but chasing it. And then add the chemistry of those 3 players. How are they playing together? How are they going to jive? Who goes where when? Who's on the forecheck? Who's F3? So I think that's starting to come, and I think it'll take time. We're only 10 games in, and those guys have really only been playing together for maybe a handful of games. What's going to happen with all that? Till an injury happens, it'll stay the same, but you hope to have some more chemistry as that progresses.
You mentioned Nemetsnikov, and he doesn't always stand out, but he just seems to be a guy that can do so many different things and many of the little things right, that he is a good fit. What do you make of Nemetsnikov in the middle there, and in particular with Nikolai Ehlers, who many centers have had a real challenging time being productive with, ironically, because of what a great player he is?
Yeah, and sometimes Nikolai Ehlers is so good that he doesn't conform to the hockey world, up and down the wing and do those things like everyone else wants to do to be able to read off of. So that creativity he has is very difficult to play with. But I think Nemetsnikov having that, European flair of having seen those kind of guys, played in different environments, played on the first line, played on the fourth line, can really be the quiet Brian Little. right? Put up some numbers, but at the end of the year, he's probably going to be a quiet guy with 50 points this year, doing a lot of face-off winning, dishing out pucks, getting to the net, covering for mistakes, and doing that. And everyone's going to go, oh, he's not that good. Problem is, you don't hear his name in the flashy moments. You hear his name. We need a puck out of the zone in the last 2 minutes of the game. He's out there, maybe with Adam Lowry's line or someone else. But I think quietly he's having a real good season. And I think Kevin Cheveldayoff realized that I can't have a top-heavy six because my bottom six don't get to play or contribute. Well, now we're seeing that 1 through 12 contribute, even time on the ice. Of course, your big guys are going to get more time on the power play and so on. But understanding those guys are going to get an opportunity to be part of the group and feel part of the team. And we're going to have a team environment allows the whole group to succeed.
Well, and I think this line is so important. I mean, they need Ehlers to be the offensive driver there. And frankly, Perfetti, night in and night out, to me, just shows why they drafted him. I mean, that world-class vision, passing ability, and getting more comfortable. I mean, I think when Balharry comes back, he'll probably go back to his position. In all likelihood, Iafallo moves back down to the third line, and this line will stay intact. What's the potential for this line? I mean, when they get 20, 25 games under their belt, Ehlers is feeling at full capacity, if you will, after the slower start and missing training camp. When you look at this line, what is it capable of in your mind, JP?
Yeah, that's good. One, can it stay healthy? Right, we have two players that have never been really healthy the whole time on either sides of the wing. So if they can stay healthy and find a rhythm, I think you can have an exciting second line. And, at times you'll probably see them bounce between the second and third line, depending on matchups for Adam Lowry. And I think that's the key, right? If we're playing a bigger, heavier team, can Adam Lowry take some of those big, heavy minutes away and allow them to have a better matchup to create more offensively? And I think Cole Perfetti, as he gets more comfortable, we're going to see him have more playmaking ability, but also get to the net. The scare for that line is it can be very perimeter-ish at times. Can we find a way to identify, to get to the net? Because you're not going to score pretty goals every day. There's got to be some ugly rebound mucker goals in there to create fear in the defending team. So can they do that? And if they do that consistently, we're looking at a very good 2A or 2B, whatever you want to call them, in the Winnipeg Jets organization. But a lot of questions. We're planning the next 25 games. Darn well, Huss, someone's going to get hurt within that, and that plan is going to get juggled. And it might not even be one of those three guys, but it could be someone else, and that affects every other line through the lineup.
No, there's no doubt about that. And listen, they're dealing with a big injury right off the bat in Gabe Balharry. Just before we get to Balharry, you mentioned Adam Lowry and the season he's had. First of all, he's the captain. I wanted to get your thoughts on Adam Lowry's fit as the captain of the Winnipeg Jets, but also his play. And granted, did not have his best game the last time out at home. Maybe the answer might be different coming off that monster game he had in Montreal. But for the most part, he's been just the same guy that a lot of times was carrying this team at the end of the season. But thoughts on Lowry as the captain and how he has looked as the leader of that third line?
Yeah, and you said part of the answer there, Huss. Being a captain has not changed Adam Lowry. He is still the same hardworking, get to the net, kill penalties, do all the things that he wants. And I think that's a perfect example of what you want your leader to be. It doesn't matter that he has or doesn't have a letter on his chest to make him a different player. He is Adam Lowry. He knows who he is. He knows what he does. He will do whatever it takes to win. If he has to score a goal, block a shot, win a faceoff, do the other intangibles. And to me, having that as your leader really does things for the group. And knowing that you can quietly leave Josh Morrissey play his 30 minutes a night and worry about that without having to worry about the group. But Adam Lowry is a born captain. It doesn't matter who you are. He does stuff for the community. He rallies the team together. He is a great teammate. He is supportive. I think you're looking at a guy who epitomizes what a leader is. He does a lot of little things that we don't see, but I also think it turns the page, and you don't like to say this, on the old agenda of the Winnipeg Jets. Adam Lowry now is the captain. He doesn't look back. He doesn't care what has happened in the past. It is about his group, and he molds that group to fit the way he wants. Would you agree that the Winnipeg Jets identity kind of fits Adam Lowry? They're hard to play against. They're fast on the puck. They're aggressive, and they don't take no BS from anybody. that might not have always been said about past Winnipeg Jets teams.
Well, you know what? It's a great observation, Vij. And, I mean, I know we're not, in the room on a daily basis and around the club, but when you look at the trade that was made, bringing in some new players, and let's not forget Niederreiter and Nemetsnikov coming in at the deadline last year. I mean, they hadn't been here through that entire time. Buying out Wheeler and having Blake no longer part of this club after being really the alpha, well, certainly since Dustin Byfuglien left the dressing room. What do you think that's happened to the team dynamic with a deeper team, one that's led by Adam Lowry with some different faces in that room this year?
I hate to say it because one guy can't control the whole group, but I think by having Blake Wheeler leave, I mean, they're not even young players anymore. The Adam Lowrys, the Josh Morrisseys, the Mark Scheifele don't have a question mark over their shoulder with every move they make in that dressing room. It is now their team. There is no more excuses. There is no more what if Blake Wheeler doesn't have 85 points or get his 2 minutes of power play time. It doesn't matter, right? That chapter is moved on. So now I think, Blake Wheeler made a joke of it. Hopefully he's listened to all the things he shouldn't do from me the other day. And I think that's a great thing. But Adam Lowry's been groomed for this since he was 5 years old, watching his dad through the National Hockey League, play and learn. And the old school ways with the new school methods, I think, is a perfect fit. And you see it. The dressing room is lighter. We're not hearing of any complaining. Not that we heard about a lot of complaining before, but there was always kind of cracks in the foundation per se. But now we're not hearing of any of that, where it's just 22 guys trying to pull the same rope and get to the same finish line.
JP Vigier with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We had a great chat with Craig Button last year, and you look at the depth of the forward group, who you got in net. I mean, if there's one area that, could be improved, it's probably the blue line. And looking at the blue line this season overall, what have you liked and what concerns you, JP?
Well, I like that they can move the puck. I also like the inconsistencies on how they don't move the puck and how we have trouble defending off the rush sometimes, I find. And that might not even be just the defense. It could be the forwards coming back to apply help to the defense. So I think the collective defensive group can be very good, but at times we're very hiccupy in how we approach that. So I think finding those consistencies will be very important. They want to play tight. They want to play fast. And at times we see them play very well, give up 1 goal a game, and they're flying. At times you're like, where the heck is everybody going? Because there's no one in the right place. But I think that could be just a matter of a lot of new faces in the lineup. The back end is very consistent from the previous years. We're looking for players to take growth. And I think Nate Schmidt got his finger slapped early in the year with being a healthy scratch. And we still haven't seen him take off into what they're envisioning him, be it a second pairing defenseman, helping offensively a little more. We haven't seen that. The rest of the guys, you've seen what you get consistently. But the next steps will be who is coming up to really be that number 2 and 3 defenseman. Is Dylan Sandberg going to continue to grow and take the ice away from the other players because he deserves that or shows he can do it? We're still waiting on who's the DeFunco factor after Josh Morrissey, because at times Neil Pionk, you're like, he's got this. And then other times you're like, where's he going? So I think that, it's not nice to say. I've been a player. I go through it, but you're like, he's got this. And at times you're like, I think he either needs better support or he needs to be more consistent in his games.
Vij, no one was under a bigger spotlight through the offseason, as well as early on in training camp than Mark Scheifele. What did you think about the dual extensions to Scheifele and Hellebuyck first off? And what have you seen from Mark now that a lot of the outside noise, influence, everything's done? It's just time to go out and play hockey and win games.
Yeah. Wait, let's go first. Kevin Schell pulls the feather out of the hat because he gets both those deals. Yes, they're long contracts. But let's be clear. Mark Scheifele keeps himself in tip-top shape. Will he be the same player at 37 as he is at 30? Probably not. Nobody is. But, that could be, with the salary cap moving up like they're talking about, that could be a steal for the next 7 years. Connor Hellebuyck, you're in a win mode now. You have one of the top 5 or 6 goalies in the National Hockey League locked up for the next 7 years. I think it's quietly goes under the radar as probably one of the best moves of the summer for the Winnipeg Jets. Never mind the trades and the acquisitions. he solidifies having, his number one center and his number one goalie for the next almost decade. Looking at Mark Scheifele, we really didn't see a change in him. I think it just helps him validate himself and continue to grow his game. And now, with the encouragement of Adam Lowry and company, they're just going to grow as number 1, 2, and 3 centers through the organization for the next 7 or 8 years. Now Mark Scheifele just has to go out and play hockey. And I think we saw it early. Lots of energy. We saw more fisticuffs out of him than we've seen in a long time. But showing that passion to the group and knowing that he's going to drag them into the fight now. And that's what you want your number one centerman to do, not just to be your skilled guy, but drag the team into the fight to make sure everyone's ready.
Has he seemed more engaged to you? I mean, listen, we all know that at times he was a pretty one-dimensional player and was criticized maybe for cheating on offense and not caring as much about the defensive side of the equation. I mean, when you're playing that much, you have to be better. You talked about growing his game. Has there been growth in that side of it? Because we all know the guy can produce offensively.
Yeah, I think there's been some growth in there for sure. Early on in the season, we saw call it the piss and vinegar out of him. He was flying. He was, throwing body checks. He was responding to stuff. And I think that's a hard way to play for 82 when you're playing 22 to 25 minutes a night, right? So I think we've seen that maybe tail back a little bit, but it'll be interesting to see, can he dig in and draw the guys into fight like he's been doing? There's been growth in his game for sure, but now can he continue to develop and grow that even more?
All right, Vij, let's get down to your specialty, a little X's and O's here. In the past, the Jets have been a team that, in fact, have quite relied on special teams. They maybe have not been as good at 5-on-5, but they've leaned on their all-star goaltender. They've leaned on their penalty killing, and they've tried to make things happen with the man advantage. It's been the exact opposite this year. 5-on-5, they've been one of the best teams in the league, and they've been consistently good at 5-on-5. They've given up a power play goal in 8 of 9. Part of that was maybe a little shaky start for Hellebuyck. But right now, certainly in the game against the Rangers, it seemed like that game was determined on special teams, and it was a lack of any sort of success with the power play. What are you seeing right now from the Jets with the man advantage, and how do they get out of this funk?
Yeah, I think, early on what we saw was a direct approach from the Winnipeg Jets. If you think of that first Calgary Flames first power play, they were throwing pucks at the net and they were moving and they were zipping that puck around. What we've seen of late is a little more tendency to hold on to the puck and be stagnant in our movements. The best power plays in the National Hockey League have ebb and flow of players moving in and out of positions, making it difficult for the penalty killers to read and react to situations. The easiest thing for them is when the Winnipeg Jets get into their player on one side, pass the puck, move the puck to the other side, and back and forth, and a one-timer from Kyle Connor. The puck has to move more. The players have to move more into positions in different positions, rotate from the bumper to net front to allow confusion, and then the seams open up for those plays. But right now we're seeing not enough pucks at the net early, and then not enough movement out of the players to allow for confusion on the penalty killers, because everyone pre-scouts. Everyone knows where the puck is going. It's coming to Kyle Connor, right? It's going to Mark Scheifele. Morrissey's going to put it on net. Let's think of the best power plays over the last decade. Alex Ovechkin doesn't move. Everyone else moves, and the puck finds its way to him. So there's got to be some confusion created amongst the players to help get the puck to those spots at the right time.
Well, and listen, I mean, the Rangers have a nuclear power play right now, and we think of Fox and Panarin, but Chris Kreider is a huge part of it, and we saw him stick that dump truck in front of Connor Hellebuyck. He's one of the best tippers.
That's not a dump truck, Huss. That's a semi-trailer.
I guess the question is, I mean, I think the answer is obvious. Are the Jets making it difficult enough on the power play for the opposition goaltenders to see the puck and be ready to stop it?
Yeah, not consistent enough, right? I think there's some traffic, but it's not consistent traffic. And I think sometimes we're looking to get too cute with a little bit of low puck movement, up, down, try and get a quick one-timer. But someone's got to get in the eyes. And I know they've had a rotating personnel. Ehlers has been tried. Perfetti's been in there. Yes, we have the injury to Villardi. So I think a lot of those pieces are still finding their way. But I think the first thing is they have to move and outwork the opposition. And that really hasn't happened. We've had puck control. Notice it's been slow movement. It hasn't been bang, bang, bang. What did you look at the Rangers power play? Low to high, shot to the net, screen tip. They recover the puck, they do it again. Then the Jets are scrambling. Then they find a seam pass for a backdoor one-timer for Zuccarello or Panarin and company. So that has to be consistent, but they're moving. The Rangers were in different spots all the time, so it's different looks. It's a righty here. It's a lefty here. Now you're like, where's this guy going? Where's he been? You look over your shoulder, the puck's in the net, and we haven't seen that out of the Jets, and I think that's the big thing for me.
Cole Perfetti, they did the switch with Ehlers and Fetz for the last game. Obviously, the results weren't great. Assuming that Perfetti gets, a longer look with that number one power play unit, and knowing his incredible vision and passing ability, where is the best fit for him on the power play in your mind, Vij?
Okay, to me, on one of the flank sides. We haven't seen a lot of his one-timer side, so I think Kyle Connor's kind of got that locked up, and you're probably not going to move him away from there. But I think if Cole Perfetti can work the other flank and really use some deception to move and get in and out of the maybe switch in the bumper spot once in a while with Mark Scheifele, I think that could create some confusion, and both players have the ability, to shoot the puck or move the puck at the right time. So I think that kind of in between bumper and flank, maybe squeak into the net front once in a while to allow some switches with Iafallo. I think that'll be very important. But I think can he take that next step and to believe, okay, I'm the guy here. I have to really help. I'm not the key cog in this, but I got to make sure this flows for everyone else to get there. And can he help on puck retrievals on that side that he's at? Because the puck retrieval sometimes doesn't happen quick enough because guys aren't getting to those loose pucks.
JP Vigier's with us. Vij, last one for you on the way out, and so great to have you back on the program. We always remember Rick Ralph sold 10-game segments. We're 9 games in. They got one more tomorrow. I mean, I guess they're guaranteed of being 500, with some pretty quality competition. Just, put your fan hat on for a minute. Where's your optimism level for where this team is at and what they're capable of right now based on the opening 9, soon to be 10 games?
Well, they're not quite in first place, so the fans aren't quite in full panic mode yet, but they are showing progress through the lineup, right? Like lots of new bodies, lots of new chemistry throughout, your 4 lines up front. So you're looking for that, but they've got points. Was it 4 out of their last 5 games or something? So I think, they're nipping away at points. They're putting things in the bank, as they like to say. So I think that's progress. There's work to be done, definitely. And I think you'll see continue to grow. And the challenge becomes, how can they be? The schedule's been pretty good for them as far as, time off between games. It's going to start to get heavy here real quick because the season gets compressed in a hurry. Can they continue to grind and create offensively while being good defensively? So far, so good. I think they're in a playoff spot. I didn't look this morning at the standings. People are going to kind of key that. Thanksgiving for the U.S. line is coming. That's the old deadly marching first check mark on the point list. If we can be in a playoff spot by Thanksgiving, you're, I think, 80% chance of being in the playoffs at the end of the year. So step 1 is you're getting there.
Vij, always great having you on the program. Thanks so much for doing this. Quickly, how's biz going on? You're spending a lot of time on the rinks with the young hockey players of the province on a daily basis?
Yeah, we're grinding away, helping associations this winter. We're on the ice 5-6 nights a week. Stayed home for Halloween last night. My wife was like, "Why are you home?" I'm like, "It's Halloween. Kids don't go to the ice."
At least you get a night off. Too bad we didn't have a better World Series game to entertain you. That one's pretty much was over early. JP, let's do this again soon. All the best. Thank you very much for the time, and great talking to you again as always.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. We'll talk soon.
All right, great stuff with JP. Always one of our favorites to have on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We're going to stay on the Jets and the National Hockey League, a few other topics. Scotty Billeck coming up right away. Of course, at the beginning of the program, if you missed it, Brady Oliveira will be the Western nominee for the most outstanding player, going head-to-head with Chad Kelly. And congratulations to Jamarcus Hardrick as well, who is up for a season award as the most outstanding offensive lineman. And Brady Oliveira will be going up again as well against, in the most outstanding Canadian department, against Marc-Antoine Decoy of the Montreal Alouettes. And of course, the leader of the blue and gold, Mike O'Shea, up for Coach of the Year, going up against Ryan Dinwiddie in Toronto. Of course, all our Bomber reports on Winnipeg Sports Talk brought to you by Princess Auto. I don't need to tell any of you what's happening November 11th at 5:30. It's the kickoff for the West Final. But I will remind you to get there early. Get outside to the Princess Auto tailgate party. I know last year they had warming stations. I'm sure that will be in effect. They'll probably add some hot chocolate to the menu, along with cheap beers, pop, hot dogs to get you ready to get loud and support the Bombers, fingers crossed, on their way to the Grey Cup in Hamilton. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk, and where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new at Princess Auto. Pop by and see him on Panet Road or Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Well, gang, the holidays are around the corner, believe it or not, now that we're into November. And when you're thinking about your holiday gift lists, you could probably take care of just about all of the sports fans in the family and in your circle with one simple trip to the ultimate sports superstore, Royal Sports. I would suggest getting there before November 11th. They got a great selection of warm bomber gear, toques, scarves, hoodies, and whatnot. You're going to definitely want to layer up and be ready to get loud on the November 11th. And tons of Jets merchandise, many new pieces, many exclusives. And of course, they can do a jersey up for you, any style, with any name, any number as well. All waiting for you there at Royal Sports. And hey, with hockey season back, you already know for 40 years, family owned, the heavyweight champs of all things hockey. For players of all ages and all skill levels, they've got you covered at Royal Sports. Get on down there, and this is a great time to remind you, follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina. This is the time of year where you see a lot of new merchandise drops or new things coming in for the holidays that you might need to be timely to get your hands on. So at Royal Sports Pembina on Instagram as well, and pop by and see him at 750 Pembina Highway. And listen, only 4 games in the National Hockey League tonight. We'll get to the games in the Coolbet lines in a minute. But we do have Game 5 of the World Series. And listen, whether you're watching the pucks, whether you're watching baseball, tomorrow an interesting Thursday nighter to start things off between the Steelers and Titans, followed by a late game in Vegas between the Jets and Golden Knights. Best place to get together with your gang to watch the game is always your local Boston Pizza. Chow down on those world-famous Boston wings, ice-cold schooners, gourmet pizzas, and more. And make sure to check out all the new offerings on the BP appetizer menu on your next trip down to Boston Pizza. And hey, little too cold to go out? Next best thing, order in. Get the great taste of Boston Pizza delivered hot and fresh to your door by ordering at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's get Billeck in here and keep the show rolling. Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun joins us now. Billeck, what's going on? How are you?
Come on, man. I'm looking at the chat. They're waiting for the dog. They're waiting to see if the rubber ducky is on the paintball gun and whatever. And I'm disappointed to tell the chat that I haven't done it. I had to plan today. Like you go to like Walmart or whatever, and Halloween's just like never existed on November 1st, and I was hoping to have a bunch of Christmas stuff up and all that to kind of play along with the whole shift into the 2-month countdown to Christmas now, but I haven't got it yet. So
isn't today the day to hit like Shoppers and all those places for discounted candy? Remis will have a take on that for sure.
Well, it's funny how you say that. I went last night because my wife and I were going to give out some candy at our condo complex here. I think we had 2 kids come by, but I went to Sobeys to buy some candy. They had already had it marked down at like 5:30, 6 o'clock last night. So I think you can get it pretty cheap the night of Halloween, as long as it's past like a certain time. They already have the signs up. So anyways, might be a pro tip for next year.
I think that's the move. I remember I went one time the next morning and it was all gone to like Walmart or something. If you go the night of, right. that might be he may be onto something.
There's the tip. Don't actually participate in Halloween or give out candy when it's actually happening. That's when you go to the store to pick up the discounted and then put 15 pounds on November, crushing all those bags of candy that you bought and never gave out at Halloween. Hey, let's talk about just this big story in the National Hockey League today. The Sens getting clipped a first-round pick for their handling of the Dadonov trade. And as we speak right now, Scott, as we're live on YouTube, the Sens announcing the firing of Pierre Dorion. I guess there are consequences to that. It's a very strange thing. And Derek VanDiest was on earlier on. There obviously had to be a level of impropriety that the league felt like they were trying to pull somewhat of a fast one. They knew that it wasn't right, and they still went and did it anyways. Yeah. That being said, still a very significant punishment to the Sens, and Pierre Dorion eventually costing his job after 8 years on the with the Sens.
Yeah, I think my take on it is, it sucks for Pierre Dorion, but because I've been hard on Pierre Dorion in the past because, at one point the Ottawa Senators were just kind of spinning their tires, right? But then he was starting to make big moves, right? Like he was starting to rebuild that team. I think we've seen that. Obviously, they didn't keep DeBrincat in the summer, but they did get him to Ottawa at one point. And so, I thought this team was actually moving in the right direction under Pierre Dorion. But I think with a new owner, first of all, you just wonder how long he was going to last there, especially when they hired Steve Staios on. And so you bring him in, and now Steve Staios is the interim GM. Imagine that interim tag gets taken away at some point unless Staios goes to president of hockey ops or whatever, and they have another guy. But either way, you kind of wondered if, a new owner just sort of often means they just want to install their own people, right? They want to have their own GM, president, all that kind of stuff. So you wonder now with this coming out, if this was they made it a lot easier to throw somebody under the bus for how this took place with Dadonov, right? I mean, obviously, and I was listening to Elliott yesterday, and he was talking a little bit about, maybe they don't go as hard because it is a new owner. But yeah, first round pick, that's a tough one. That's a tough one, especially for a team that's rebuilding, right? And so let's say, maybe the Senators use it this year. I think it's 3 years, right? They have 3 years where they can pick one of those years to do it. But as a team that's rebuilding, you want your first round picks, but then as a team that's starting to push or make that push, you want those picks potentially to use in a trade, right? You want to use those picks to make your team better around the deadline or whatever. So it's a harsh sanction, right?
Number one asset that teams have is first round picks right now in the cap era with players playing on ELCs.
Yeah.
With the talent that goes and turns into significant NHL players in the first round. It's not unprecedented because it happened to the Arizona Coyotes that John Chayka fiasco a couple years back, and they lost the number one pick in the 2021 draft. But draft picks have only been taken away 9 times in the league, and I believe this is only the second time it has been a first rounder. So it's quite clear how significant the National Hockey League felt that the actions of the Ottawa Senators were.
Well, and it looks, right, like they tried to, like you said, pull a fast one, sweep something a little bit under the rug, whatever it was, to get Dadonov out of there and trade him, right, without telling Vegas that whatever it was, he hadn't, submitted his no trade or he had, but they just said he hadn't, whatever, the truth is here regarding that. I mean, obviously, I think we know what the truth is now based on this penalty. I mean, this was the Ottawa Senators committing a major no-no. And like you said, only being the first round taken away. It's interesting. It's funny. The NHL seems to be, we saw it with the Shane Pinto suspension. They've been very decisive, let's say, on these sorts of things. Like they want to make sure that a clear message is sent. If you screw around with gambling or if you screw around with trading a guy and not maybe giving the full details to the team that you're trading him to, there's going to be stiff and harsh penalties for teams to absorb, and that's the way it should be, right? If you want this league to be, and I'm not saying it's not taken seriously, but we're looking at you look at the Charlie McAvoy hit, and I'm talking, we're talking about player safety and all that. I mean, I think the idea that 4 games now seems to be maybe the running kind of number for a blatant headshot. We saw it with what's his name, and that missed Rasmus Andersson on the line hit. I think the league might just be taking a bit of a more stiff stance against a lot of different things, from player safety all the way up to these kind of board penalties that you get for teams. So yeah, I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I think you need to keep the integrity of the league. It always has to be at the top of mind, right? And so when you have teams that are kind of pulling this kind of crap, yeah, it's good. I mean, you saw it with Arizona. I mean, I thought that was the exact right thing that they needed to do. You got to send a message. You can't be trying to circumvent everything. I understand why you take Dorion out. It erodes a lot of the trust, I think, that other GMs might have trying to trade with the Senators, right? And so I think that's something as a new owner, as Michael Andlauer is, you don't want to start on that foot where your team's kind of being looked down on. So yeah, not totally surprised that Dorion falls on the sword here, because you got to think in the end he was the one that probably knew more than anybody else that at that transgression at least.
Well, maybe now with Staios running the show from a hockey ops perspective, who has been named interim GM right now, and I believe he already was appointed the president of hockey ops, so he was sort of above Dorion. So he's taken over right now. It probably was a bit of an uncomfortable situation for Pierre to begin with.
You see the writings on the wall, right?
But I'm sort of with you. I mean, I actually have a lot of time for the job that he's done. I mean, the Chychrun trade. Listen, I thought they needed to be, and in these markets, sometimes you need to be aggressive to try to move yourself forward. They did that with the DeBrincat trade. Listen, they were in a tough spot, and maybe when you compare what the Winnipeg Jets got for Pierre-Luc Dubois compared to what they got for DeBrincat, who were basically at the same point in their careers with 1 year before UFA, might have been a little bit underwhelming, but they got a pick back, and but now they move on. And I'll say this, I mean, to your point about the trust within the league, I can guarantee you that the Vegas Golden Knights weren't picking up the phone from Pierre Dorion after all that that happened. So maybe a fresh start with new ownership and a new guy calling the shots kind of changes the scenario or the situation a little bit amongst their peers for the Ottawa Senators.
Well, and it was important for Vegas to make sure that they cleared their name, right? Because I think back when this happened, we were talking about how did Vegas, screw this up, right? Like, Vegas is a well-run organization. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen how aggressive they've been at chasing the Stanley Cup, and obviously won it last year. In that way, they're a little ruthless at times, but that's how they've kind of done it. But if you're anybody in that, from Foley to all the way down to McPhee and then McCrimmon there, the last thing that you want is to be thought that like you were trying to pull the fast one in Anaheim, right? Like, I don't think that's, and so I think in the end, Vegas wanted to be exonerated from this before anybody else, right? So, I mean, I think that's a big thing for Vegas to have this come public, that it was on Ottawa, it wasn't on them. They were kind of, the wool was pulled a little bit over their eyes, and so they were the ones early on that seemed to have egg on their face, but that's not the case now, and I think this has sort of been, let's say rectified, I guess, in the end. And, I think it's, bad for Ottawa in a sense, but it's good for the league that they got it right. And I guess the only question that you have in the end is, how did this take so long to, kind of come? It's been 2 years since they tried to trade that off. So it did take a long time. I mean, I guess in the end you want to make sure you get it right. I guess the cynic in me thinks of the timing as like, okay, well, if this was the case, I mean, this is an easy out for Andauer and the organization to get rid of Dorion, right? Because this was an easy one. So maybe, I don't know. I thought this might come out maybe before the sale, right? You want to get this done before the sale happens, but I assume every party here was sort of involved all through the process. So it is what it is, and
and with Dorion moving on, the one thing I'll give him a ton of credit for is his ability to sign extended long-term contracts with some of the key pieces. Like, if you look at where Ottawa's at right now, they've got Stützle signed till the end of 30-31 at 8.3. When you look at his production, I mean, that's money well spent. Brady Tkachuk signed his long-term deal. He's done till the end of 2028, so 4 more seasons beyond this. You've got Josh Norris going to the end of the 30 season, and very talented young player. He's been hurt, so it hasn't really had as much an effect, but I don't think they regret that one. You've got Paterson signed to the end of the 2027 season. Artem Zub, quietly, a really, really quality defender, 4.6 till the end of 27. And then they just got the Jake Sanderson deal done as well. And they did it not only, like, I think the Jets in some ways have they've done a very good job because, and this goes right to the top with Mark Chipman and Kevin Cheveldayoff, the way they treat their players. They have always done it in a first-class operation. They have those relationships with those players, and I think that's really helped them. I don't think that was ever the case with Eugene Melnyk. So it's maybe even more impressive what he was able to do. That being said, they're right where they've usually been at the bottom of the Atlantic Division in an ultra competitive East and East Division. Both they and Buffalo right now. I mean, there's a real sense of urgency to get wins right now and not fall too far behind the usual suspects. So anyways, that was a huge story today. And one of the other things that came out after the show that we should touch on, and we hit it quickly at the start, in epic Paul Stastny fashion, retiring without really saying anything. And then Pierre LeBrun just said, hey, so how are things going on? And he's like, oh, things are going great. I haven't filed the papers yet, but basically decided at the end of September that I was done.
Yeah.
Just didn't really tell anyone. Great piece there in The Athletic. And it was neat to see how fondly Stastny thinks about, his time here in Winnipeg. And certainly Winnipeg, I think, thinks fondly about his time and what he was able to do for the Winnipeg Jets as a very key member of the club twice.
The thing with Paul Stastny, I think, is it's almost like he legitimized this town when it comes to we all remember the talk of how nobody would come here, right? Players wouldn't waive their no trades to come to Winnipeg. He was the first one, really, like the big name, right, to waive his no trade from St. Louis that year. It might even have been a no movement at the time, and come to Winnipeg to take a run at the Stanley Cup with the Jets. And I think that's the one deal that the Jets went searching for Paul Stastny for 2 years after that, right? They were looking like Kevin Hayes wasn't that guy. And then the year after, the year after was a little different because of COVID and all that stuff. But he was the guy, right? Like he was the guy, in my opinion, that legitimized how it changed a little bit of the way that I think, I don't even know if it was the league, but just like it helped. I think it helped fans. I think it helped the town. I think it helped the organization a little bit to think we can get these guys to come to this town, especially at the deadline, if there's a winner, if there's a chance to win a Stanley Cup here. And so I think that's maybe the biggest thing that Paul Stastny did for this team and this city is almost sort of put them back on the map or on the map for the first time or wherever you want to look at it as a team that, players will come here if they can see a chance to win, right? So, and at the end of the day, I know this is a guy who came here. Obviously, I think they tried to re-sign him after that 2017-18 season. You always wonder what would have happened if they outbid Vegas or whatever on that, because he played so well with Ehlers and Laine at the time. But obviously a great career. Maybe one of the better careers not to win a cup, right?
Just so, quickly, his leaving after 2018 and signing with Vegas. If we want to do a little bit of revisionist history and go back. I've been pretty steadfast. I think something went rotten in this hockey club right around New Year's of the 18-19 season. And of course, Buff got hurt. Buff wasn't there for the better part of the second half of the season, played in the playoffs, and then that was it. I really do, in retrospect, wonder. And again, I have no idea whether it was just money, whether he was just like, listen, I want to go to Vegas. That's the team that I want to play for. I want to live there. No idea about all that.
Yeah.
But I will make a case that if Paul Stastny and his presence was on this team and in this locker room in the 18-19 season, before coming back, if he never left, put it that way, that maybe we would be talking about a very different history. And I'm not saying the team would have won the cup or anything like that, but I don't think they implode from within the way they did in that year if Paul Stastny is still on the club that following season.
And I would totally agree with you, Huss, because I think if the other part of Paul Stastny that you would look at as part of his tenure in Winnipeg after his return was what he said in his final year here, right? After that final year 2 years ago now, where he kind of ripped the Band-Aid off of this team and exposed some of the problems, the comments that he made at the end of that last year about the lack of maybe respect for one another and all that. Those were big. Like I think, I mean, we like to use the word seismic sometimes because it was one of the words that Kevin Cheveldayoff used when they hired Rick Bowness in last summer, 2 summers ago now. But I wonder. I mean, I think that it wasn't just him. Obviously, Mark Scheifele obviously had his comments that day, but it wasn't even at the end of the year. It was like during that time where this team was really slipping down in the last half of that season. And Paul Stastny, he would be the guy. It wasn't Blake Wheeler who was the captain of the team. It wasn't any of the assistants that came out to talk. It was Paul Stastny, the guy who'd been around the league forever, all those years in obviously in Colorado, all those years. I mean, just the lineage that he has with his dad and his uncles and all that. Like there's a lot there, right? And he was the one, in my opinion, that really kind of started this team getting the ball rolling on kind of changing the culture with it, because he sort of exposed the culture, right? Whether he did it on purpose or he was just being honest, because Paul Stastny was often honest, very honest at times. But I think what he did is, here's a guy on the outside that came in, and especially in the second go around here, could see something that maybe he didn't see on this team in that first go around or whatever it was. And he basically spelled it out for everybody, right? And I think that's, again, if there's two things that if there's one thing he did, I think it was back in 2017-18 and all that brought the Jets and whatever. And I think that extended into the following year, getting Kevin Hayes and that sort of thing. But I think at the end, he's sort of partly has become, part of the fabric of the genesis of this team kind of changing, changing its ways. So because he was very, very honest. And I think some of those comments really kind of exposed the fact that, well, why isn't leadership on this team saying these things too, right? Like why does Paul Stastny?
It kind of showed who the leaders were in a lot of ways.
Right?
I mean,
you wonder how much that led to. I mean, we'll never know, but how much that was a cascading effect to the following year, the following season. Rick Bowness taking the captaincy away from Blake Wheeler. I just wonder, right? But you wonder how much actual impact that Paul Stastny has had on the Winnipeg Jets. And these are two things that we're not even talking about on the ice, right? We're talking about two things that happened off the ice that may have, helped this team at different points in this franchise kind of history since coming back from
classic T Will line in the chat. So Huss, are you saying the fact that Winnipeg doesn't have a cup is all Stastny's fault? Interesting take. That's probably pushing it a little bit, but as I say, I mean, I will never kind of get over what happened seemingly to that team that was like second overall. We knew how good they were.
Incredible.
And in the second half of the season, and it wasn't what everyone else around them was doing. It was, it sort of seemed like it was imploding from the inside. And I just think that, that effect that Stastny had, how much he was respected by his teammates, his presence there, I think probably, whether it pushes it off to a later date or minimizes a little bit, stabilizes it. Yeah. Put it this way, I don't think they drop as far as they did. And of course, well, we all remember how that season ended. Anyways, we don't need to go down that road again. As far as right now, though, big test tomorrow. Speaking of the Vegas Golden Knights, 9-0-1 on the season. The Jets go in there playing some pretty good hockey. And I mean, I'm not going to nitpick too much. I mean, they've got 8 points out of the possible 10 in their last 5 after starting 1-3, probably deserving a better record at that from there. But it's pretty clear where they need to get better, Scott, right now, because the 5-on-5 game is good. The goaltending's back. This team is killing themselves on special teams. And you'd love to see the penalty kill shore up and get a few more zeros on the board. It's only happened once this year. But it was impossible to not be talking about the power play for the last couple of days coming out of Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, the power play is 4 for 34, I believe, now in the season. I think that's, 11.9%. That's very bad. And it's worse because of the talent, right? Like, we know how good of a shooter O'Connor is. We know how good of a shooter Mark Scheifele can be. We know what Josh Morrissey can do from the point and the shot that he has. We know what Alex Iafallo can do in front when the pucks are there, right? Like, and then Nikolai Ehlers or Cole Perfetti or whoever's on that it's changed because obviously they're just not scoring. It's 4 games now. I think they're 0 for 13 in that span. Bad, right? I mean, and the problem is that coupled with the fact that the penalty kill has given up at least 1 goal in 8 of their 9 games this season. It's leaving points on the table. I wrote about this after the game on a Monday night, Blake Wheeler's return, because I think I counted 3 games now where a special teams goal a special teams goal against has kind of sewered them a little bit, because you go back to the first Vegas game of the year, Jack Eichel scores there in the last 5 minutes of the game, and you're like, they needed a good PK there, right? And then you're up 3-1 against Montreal. Adam Lowry takes a penalty, and it just kills the momentum. The Jets were absolutely dominating that game all the way up until that. They built the 3-1 lead early in that second period, and then it gave Montreal some hope, and they were able to score, and then you go from there. Same thing happened against the New York Rangers the other night. The Brendan Dillon call leads to a goal, leads to the tying goal, and then all of a sudden you're in overtime, and then you lose in overtime. And on the flip side of that, you get a 142 4-on-3 time against the Rangers in overtime, and you can't pull the trigger. So it would be better. They've talked about this, and Rick Bowness has said this, and Arneal has kind of echoed it in his time right now as the interim head coach, talking about it needs momentum, right? The problem is this power play just isn't really giving a whole lot of momentum. You watch that 4-on-3 in overtime. There's no why would the Rangers are just sitting there, and they're not getting tired because there's very little movement, and so this team is just they're making it easy for their opposing team's penalty killers, and you're like, just take some shots. There's no shots to be taken because they're not creating lanes. With no movement, there's no lanes to be made, and so you got Kyle Connor taking a couple one-timers, but there's nobody in front of the net to try and do whatever. And so you're just hoping that Kyle Connor can pull off one of those, seeing eye shots where he just places it into, basically like a 3-inch window, and puts it in. And so it's a problem, right? And I think the weird thing is, like, we were talking, they had a great PK last year. Power play had a down year. You figured that maybe the PK could stay the same, a lot of the same personnel on it now. You figure that the power play would just have a rebound. It hasn't yet. The weird thing is, though, this team's 5-on-5 play has been some of the best in the league wide, right? Which is sustaining this club. But I think you could make the argument they could have beaten Vegas, and there's an argument right now the Jets could actually just be 8-1 right now, and at the very least maybe 7-2. If special teams didn't leave some points on the table for them. And so, yeah, it's early season, right? But I mean, I think we have to think, the reason why the Jets got in the playoffs last year is because they stacked so many points up until Christmas, right? They had all these points, even into a little bit into the new year. They were just stacking points. And so when they started to slide at the end of last year, they had a relatively pretty good cushion, right? So they didn't fall completely out of it. At 4-3-2 right now, they're 3-0-2 in the last 5 games. I get it. But I think there's room here. There's obviously room here to improve. And right now, I think they've probably left, maybe upwards of 4 points, in my opinion, on the table right now. So we'll see what that means in the end. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned momentum. I mean, it also can suck the momentum from a 5-on-5 game, and a team gets a big boost from a big kill. And I think they got to do something to get more traffic. I mean, I just couldn't help but watch Chris Kreider making life miserable for Connor Hellebuck in front of the net. And then you add in his all-world deflection ability, which included a goal in that game, and you realize how big of a turning point it is. Interesting road trip, though. I mean, it starts off. It probably gets progressively easier, at least on paper, starting with Vegas, going to an Arizona team that is no joke this year, and then a struggling Blues team, and then a big 5-game homestand back at Canada Life Center. And you're exactly right. It's about stacking points right now. And even without getting 2 in their last couple games, I probably feel like they deserve to. It's the regulation losses that kill you right now. And see if they can pull anything out of Vegas tomorrow night and then take that on the road to Arizona. Scotty, what do you got cooking in the Sun over the next few days heading into the weekend?
Yeah, off today, but we're going to look at the 23 guys, do our monthly look at where the guys are at, I'll have a little of that going on, and see what tomorrow brings out of Vegas. We'll see. I think they can be competitive against this Vegas team. I know Vegas is 9-0-1. I just
They're
wonder
due for a loss. I'll say that.
Well, eventually at some point, right? And maybe even a regulation wise. And I thought the Jets had every chance the last time they met to actually do that. So yeah, it should be good. I think it's a good game. It's a great matchup. And then you got to go and you for sure have to take care of business in Arizona and St. Louis before they get back here and start that 5-gamer like you said.
Good times, dude. Thanks for doing this. You can get back to crushing those fun-sized candy bars. Take it easy.
I have a lot. Yeah. We'll talk later, man.
Right on. There is Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. Great to have him with us. Gang, I mentioned this at the beginning of the program, but circle the date, December 6th, Wednesday night, 7 p.m., Little Brown Jug. We're going to have a Winnipeg Sports Talk holiday gathering. We're working on some fun gifts for folks. We'll have some fun giveaways. I'm hopefully going to get a little bit of a mini bubble hockey tournament going with some of our regulars. Remis is even talking about potentially cranking out the NHL 94. But it will be festive. It will be merry. And we hope you can all join us. And all funds from, we'll probably do, and I'll have updates on this for next week, we'll probably do an Eventbrite ticket similar to the Sports Trivia Night. Just a minimal cost to reserve spots, and we'll just put all that money towards the charity, in all likelihood, the Christmas cheerboard. But save that date, December 6th. More information coming up over the course of the next month. And tell you what, Little Brown Jug is going to be a very, very fun place to go. Everyone likes to have a few drinks, and nothing better than Winnipeg's favorite local beer, Little Brown Jug. Did get a message from Tanner as well. Make sure to follow them on Instagram at Little Brown Jug Brewing, as well as on Twitter, because they're going to start. There hasn't really been a place that you'd go to watch a game in the past, but they're going to start playing some of the Jets and Bomber games in the tap room. There's not really a set schedule of right now, but definitely follow that. You'll see notices from it. And I'm sure at one of the games where they are planning on doing that, we'll do a little get-together at one of our favorite places to toss a couple back, Little Brown Jug down on William Avenue. And again, pop by there now. Great place to get together with your friends in and around the holidays for the next couple months. And a great gift as well, the great taste of Little Brown Jug. Pop by and see them there. You can find Little Brown Jug wherever sells great beer. And, of course, it's available now at Canada Life Centre and Investors Group Field. And go to littlebrownjug.ca. Great merchandise as well, which might make a nice little gift for the LBJ fan in your family. And, hey, I got to give thanks to Nick and Nikki DQ. Listen, there's 3 locations now in Winnipeg. DQ Polo Park, DQ Northgate with the drive-thru, and, of course, the DQ in Niverville. But I know what's really keeping Nick and Nikki busy right now is the launch of the new Pita Pit in Niverville. Obviously, Remis talked about it yesterday. Huge fan of Pita Pit. Healthy, fast, delicious, fresh. But they also do amazing catering. So if you need catering, school lunches, holiday parties, birthday parties, and want something a little healthier but still delicious that everyone will love, Pita Pit's the spot to do it. If you do want to get a catering order, and they can take care of you citywide as well, you can email them at niverville@pitamb.ca or Instagram or Twitter at Pita Pit Niverville. Big thanks to Nick and Nikki for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, before we finish up today, let's get to the Coolbet lines. And Remo, how about that pick last night? LA plus 135 in Toronto to take on the Leafs. We also got the plus 264 parlay with the Canucks. And it just keeps going. I am now, with that, 2-0 this week was for the daily pick on Coolbet Canada. Previous week doing it was 5-0, and I just got a message from Jake that he went back and checked out my last week on the job for the lock shop. It's now 10 in a row because I had 3 in a row finishing up that final week. So I'm just trying to stay hot, trying to stay doing what we're doing, and we got 4 games tonight to choose where I'm going to get the pick from.
That's really impressive, Hustler. Well done. LA over Toronto. I mean, LA is a deep team, and I think fans of the Maple Leafs are realizing that they really only have two lines. And, maybe the third on those lines is questionable, not going as well as they like. The acquisitions of Bertuzzi and Max Domi in LA. Watch out, man. Trevor Moore, Dano, and Kaliev, solid second line. PL and Fiala, line 3. And Kopitar Kempe, line 1. And with Byfield, too. I mean, that is a strong team, LA. We did see them here, and they really took it to the Jets after the Balharry injury.
And when they get a lead, they are so difficult to come back on. And when we saw what they did, they just squeezed the Jets with that 1-3-1, and the Jets did not really have an answer. Probably the two most frustrating periods from a player and from a fan standpoint all season long have been the second and third period. Unfortunately, that was our first WST game. Looking forward to seeing all of you November 30th for our next game against the Oilers and Connor McDavid. But tonight we got 4 games. And I think where I'm leaning, I think I'm going to go back to an underdog tonight. And the Buffalo Sabres in Philly. Follow at Coolbet Canada on the socials, and I'll make the pick after the show and throw it out there. But listen, Philly's been good so far this year. I think better than many of us expected. And they've actually played pretty well at home. They've got 3 big wins at home that were probably parlay killers for people putting together their picks for that night. They beat Edmonton. They shut out Vancouver 2-0, and Vancouver's been awesome so far this year. That's one of their 2 losses. And then they did it to the Minnesota Wild last week. Tonight, though, they're hosting the Buffalo Sabres. Phillies minus 115 home favorites. The Sabres a slight dog at minus 102. I actually really like Buffalo here. And this kind of goes to what we were talking before, Remis, about where the Sabres and Sens are in that division. I mean, you look at what Boston has done. Coming off that President's Trophy win last year, they're 8-0-1. The Red Wings have had a great start. They've got 13 points through 10 games. The Habs are 5-2-2. And then you've got the Lightning and the Leafs at 11. Oh, and don't forget about the Panthers, who won the East last year at 9 points in 8 games. So the Sens are 500. The Buffalo Sabres are 4-5 right now. Like, there has to be a sense of urgency from these teams to not end up where they've been the last few years. And that's way behind playing catch up and really only hoping to have some meaningful games without any real hope of the playoffs. The Buffalo Sabres have bigger intentions this year. They want to break this 12-year streak of not being in the postseason. They cannot get too far behind. They're coming off a 4-0 home shutout over the Colorado Avalanche in their last game. I think this is a spot where we will see the Buffalo Sabres play with the urgency that their situation dictates. And I like Buffalo to get this one on the road tonight against Philly, who is 3-2 at home so far this season.
I have nothing else to add on that, Huss. I agree. Philly's surprised me. I keep betting against them and picking against them on DraftKings, and they've beat me. And I feel like Buffalo, they're ready here to take a W. Road favorite, very slight road favorite, minus 102. So actually, sorry, that is the slight underdog.
It's Phillies minus 115.
Phillies minus 115. So
we then move on to Dallas and Calgary. And as we talked with DVD early, I mean, it seems pretty dire right now in Calgary. And I don't doubt that that'll be a team that'll come out kind of playing some desperate hockey, looking to get a win after their loss in the Heritage Classic. I just don't think they're good enough to go up against a team like the Dallas Stars that is rolling right now. Dallas at minus 134. Hard to go anywhere else than the Stars on the money line tonight.
Yeah, I'm leaning Stars. I don't know. I feel like Flames got to win one of these days, but they're so bad and it's not going well. And you're hearing like Zadorov talk about how they're playing like ass and stuff like that. And like they're stuck with Huberdeau making $10 million for a long time, and he signed Kadri, and that's not working. Who was it? Sean Monahan, who they gave away for free, has more points than Huberdeau and Kadri combined. I think that's the big joke.
They had to give, if I recall correctly, they gave they half decent pick to get him off the books.
They gave away Monahan and a draft pick to get rid of him. That's correct.
Yeah. So, anyways, Calgary plus 114. I think I like Dallas at minus 134. Then, of course, you got the Blues in Colorado to take on the Avs. The Avs will be pissed off after losing to Buffalo the way they did in the last game. If you want to jump on the puck line, go for it. -1.5 for the Avalanche to win by 2. Dusty suggested for our partner parlay today, we take the Avs in regulation at -135. And it's funny because we were trying to decide between the Coyotes and Ducks, between the Coyotes at -134 in Anaheim or Colorado. And I think we ended up going on Colorado. So we actually got a sweet exclusive. Let's see where it's at right now. And a great number, too. So it's Buffalo to win, Dallas to win. They can win in a shootout, win in overtime, however. And then the Avalanche to beat the Blues in regulation. And our pal, the Ev Dog at the Coolbet HQ, gave us a real nice number on this one. When we put it in, if you were just playing it yourself, it was +502. And the boost right now is up to +575. That'll often come down if a lot of people jump on it. But if you like our pick, Buffalo, Dallas, Avalanche in regulation, hit the exclusives, click the Lock Shop Partner Parlay. It is +575. And just one other thing, just on that late game tonight between Arizona and Anaheim, not really two of the marquee teams in the NHL. We were going through this, Remis, and I don't know whether I just hadn't been paying attention to Anaheim or what. Lucas Dostal's on fire. He's 4-1. And the Anaheim Ducks just ran the table on their road trip out east. Listen to this. 4 straight wins, 3-2 against the Blue Jackets. That stunning comeback where they beat the Bruins, the first time the Bruins didn't get 2 points all season long. A 7-4 win in Philly against the Flyers, and then 4-3 against the Pittsburgh Penguins. 4 in a row for the Ducks after they started 1-4. Some good things happening in Anaheim. Can they keep that going? I doubt it. But they're playing a team in the Coyotes. I don't know if the Coyotes have any goals left after peppering the Hawks for an 8 spot, putting up the snowman on Monday.
Yeah, for Anaheim, first game after a road trip, Huss. We'll see how it goes. You know that narrative, and I watched the end of that. It was during the Jets game on Tuesday. I don't know if you saw this. Pittsburgh, Anaheim. Pittsburgh outshot Anaheim significantly, and I don't know if the refs had money on the game, but they kept sending Anaheim to the box. So Pittsburgh's got a 5-on-3 for almost the entire final 2 minutes of the third period. They pass it around, shot after shot. Dostal's making saves. And then finally, as the penalty's about to expire, a pass that's supposed to go to Malkin, from the left side to Malkin at the top, gets intercepted. They poke it down the ice, and Mason McTavish out of the box on a breakaway with 10 seconds left scores on Jari. And so Pittsburgh loses in regulation. And I joked, if you're feeling bad about the Jets power play on Tuesday night, well, Pittsburgh had a 5-on-3 at the end with all those great players, Carlson, Malkin, Crosby, Gensel, and they couldn't score, and they give up the go-ahead goal. So Anaheim, they got some good young players. Mason McTavish off to a hot start. Troy Terry's solid player. They got a good lineup, but so does Arizona, who just put up 8. And I'm actually excited for that game. I'm curious how it shakes out. I'm not sure who's going to win, but I think there are going to be some goals in that one. So the 2 surprising teams to start the season. Yeah. I like Colorado there.
Yeah. So as I said, I think once we talked about this and where those teams are at, we felt better about Colorado in regulation. So those are our picks today. Buffalo, Dallas, Avs, and Reg. If you want to jump on that exclusive from the Lock Shop Parlay, it's +575. Tomorrow we'll get into the CFL playoff games in the Lock Shop. Kind of did an early look today, but the Alouettes 3.5-point favorites at home against Hamilton. And Calgary, 6.5-point underdogs in BC against the Lions. Both of those games scheduled for Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m. in the East, 5:30 p.m. in the West. And Grey Cup odds right now, it's Argos and Bombers. Toronto +115 to win the big one, and the Blue Bombers +155. BC +650. Montreal +1250. And not a lot of people thinking that Hamilton or Calgary are going to get it done. Hammer 16-1, Calgary 20-1. And just a quick look ahead to tomorrow's Thursday nighter. It's about the 5th straight week it feels like the Pittsburgh Steelers have been in a game with a 2 or 2.5-point spread. But that's where they are, hosting the Titans. Rookie quarterback Will Levis coming off his debut last week with 4 touchdowns. Tennessee 2.5-point underdogs in Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. We'll touch on that tomorrow in the Lock Shop. We'll touch on it tomorrow on the program. Tomorrow should be good. A game day program. We will get into some football talk, but we'll also have Murata Teshreem to set up to Morrow's opener to the road trip against the Vegas Golden Knights. And then I guess catch up with Kenny on Friday in between Vegas and the Arizona Tilts.
That's right, and maybe we'll talk more about this Senators press conference. Some details coming out. I'm just seeing on Twitter. It's tough to follow while we're here, but Sens Michael Anlauer, the new owner, is saying that when he was buying the team, in the process of that, none of the Pinto investigation or the Dadonov investigation was disclosed to them, taking a shot saying it's like they didn't want it to affect the purchase price. So there's a bit of a scud there at the league for that one. And he was given a 73-page document about this. What are they going to write about 73 pages about this Dadonov incident?
That's why it took 2 years.
Yeah. So I'm looking. I'm trying to follow it while we're doing the show. Not the easiest show to all the chatters who have helped. Oh yes, here's the quote. Here's a tweet from Frank as we wrap it up. Anlauer says the NHL did not advise him of either investigation, botched Dadonov, no trade clause, or Pinto sports betting incident before he closed on purchase. Quote, maybe they didn't want to disrupt the sale to make sure the seller got the best price possible. So I don't know if there's going to be something more with that, or
there could be some lawyers involved.
Yeah.
I smell a lawyer at some point in there. Hey, speaking of leaving jobs, with Dorion being out, just to finish off the show, let's give a big farewell to the Josh McDaniels era in Oakland with the Raiders. I think a lot of people were a little surprised that the Raiders maybe didn't do something at the deadline yesterday. Well, an unnamed team wanted to trade with the Raiders before the deadline, but didn't hear back and said, explains why they ghosted us. Nobody responded yesterday. Listen, Josh McDaniels in a lot of ways was the perfect clown to be driving the clown car that is the Raiders. But don't feel too bad for Josh. He's got another 4 years on his deal that the Raiders will be required to pay. Back to the drawing board. Sounds like Jimmy G's benched for the rest of the year. Antonio Pierce, their linebackers coach, is going to be their interim head coach. Another early pick coming up for the Raiders. They usually screw those up anyway, so we'll see what happens. But the Josh McDaniels era over in Vegas, and the Raiders, the GM out as well. Back to the drawing board for Mark Davis. All right, that's going to do it for us today, gang. Thanks so much. Again, appreciate everyone. If you're able to support the Movember cause, let's get on that. We'll look forward to showing off some of the clean-shaven members of the WST team over the next few days. Check the Movember page. Link is in the description. And enjoy the World Series tonight. Remo, are you going to pick Texas just so we see Arizona win and we get a sixth game?
We picked Arizona yesterday, right? And Texas
they lost.
won. And I'm pretty sure I've picked every game wrong, going back to Game 6 of the ALCS. So I think Texas gets it done for sure. It's done. 3-1.
All right.
They're not coming back.
Book it. We'll be back in Texas in a few days for Game 6, I guess. Great stuff today. Thanks to DVD, Derek VanDiest of NHL.com. Great conversation with JP Vigier and Scott Billeck for jumping on the program. Murat on the docket tomorrow. Should be a good one. We'll also talk some football heading into the week in the NFL and the playoffs in the Canadian Football League, so make sure to join us tomorrow. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, folks. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk, and make a plan to join us tomorrow, 22 hours from now, 1 p.m., live on YouTube on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.